The glass walls of his Hawthorne Industries boardroom reflected the tension like a magnifying glass concentrating sunlight. Celeste Hawthorne stood at the head of the polished mahogany table, her tailored navy suit a stark contrast to the sea of gray and black surrounding her. 12 pairs of eyes studied her with expressions ranging from concern to outright hostility. "You have a choice to make, Celeste," Richard Hawthorne's voice cut through the silence, each word precisely aimed. "Your personal entanglements, or the company your father built." He slid a document across the table's gleaming surface. "The board's resolution is clear. You have until the end of this meeting to decide." Celeste's phone vibrated in her pocket. She knew without looking who it was. Liam. The same Liam who had somehow transformed from a janitor she barely noticed to the center of her world in just a few months. The same Liam whose daughter Emma was now. The phone vibrated again, more insistent this time. Celeste pulled it out, breaking every rule of boardroom protocol she'd ever enforced. The text message made her blood run cold. "Emma's in the ER, worst attack yet. They're saying her lungs." The rest of the message disappeared off screen, but it didn't matter. Celeste was already calculating the fastest route to Memorial Hospital, mentally mapping traffic patterns and shortcuts. "Ms. Hawthorne," Richard's voice sharpened with disapproval. "We're waiting for your answer." Celeste looked up at the board members at the company she'd spent her entire adult life building, at the legacy that had defined her very existence. Then she looked back at the message from a man who fixed toilets and mopped floors for a living, a man who had somehow checkmated not just her chess pieces, but her carefully constructed life. "There are decisions that define your career," she said half to herself, "and there are decisions that define who you are." Her hand reached for the document as her phone vibrated a third time. 8 months earlier, the 42nd floor conference room glowed in the evening light as Celeste Hawthorne studied her chessboard alone. The soft knock interrupted her concentration. "Come in," she called without looking up. The arrangement of pieces demanded her full attention, a complex middle game position where Black's apparent advantage concealed a brilliant counterattack. This was the puzzle her father had taught her to solve on her 10th birthday, the day he'd also taught her the most important lesson in business emotions were luxury pieces to be sacrificed when necessary. A tall figure in gray coveralls entered, pushing a cleaning cart quietly. Something about the chess position caught his attention. Celeste noticed his gaze lingering on the board and felt an unexpected impulse born perhaps from loneliness, or the peculiar intimacy of being observed in a private moment, or simple arrogance. She smirked. "Beat me in chess and I'll marry you." The man stopped his cart. He looked directly at her with serious gray-green eyes that seemed to evaluate not just the board, but her entire existence. "My name is Liam," he replied with unexpected dignity, "and I play for real." The morning conference call had run 20 minutes over schedule, forcing Celeste to compress her quarterly strategy presentation into bullet points. Now standing before the executive team on the 44th floor, she maintained the poised exterior that had become her professional signature while inwardly recalculating timelines and contingencies. "The Williams acquisition presents three distinct advantages." She continued, advancing to the next slide with a subtle gesture. "Market penetration in the Midwest, patent consolidation for our medical devices division, and elimination of our most aggressive competitor in the regulatory approval space." Richard Hawthorne, her father's younger brother and the company's chairman, leaned forward with the predatory attention he reserved for discussions of corporate takeovers. "And the potential antitrust issues, already addressed in Section 4 of the proposal," Celeste replied smoothly. "Our legal team has prepared 3 defensive strategies, all with precedent from the Mercer-Goldsmith case last year." She continued the presentation, noting the subtle shifts in posture around the table, the gradual lean-in that signaled engagement, the nodding heads that indicated approval. Celeste had learned to read these corporate tells as carefully as chess positions. In both arenas, perception of strength often mattered more than its reality. Afterward, as executives filtered out with tablets and coffee cups in hand, Richard lingered. "Impressive work, as always, Celeste," he said, straightening his Italian tie. "Though I wonder if we're being aggressive enough on the Williams valuation. Another 5% reduction could be achieved with the right pressure." Celeste maintained her professional smile. "The current offer already undervalues their R&D pipeline by 8%, pushing harder risks losing the regulatory goodwill they've built." Sometimes the optimal move isn't taking every piece you can. Richard's smile didn't reach his eyes. Chess metaphors. Your father would be proud. He patted her shoulder in the avuncular manner she'd always found slightly patronizing. Just remember, in business, unlike chess, changing the rules mid-game is sometimes the winning strategy. After he left, Celeste remained motionless at the conference table, her father's voice echoing in memory. In chess and in business, Celeste, never show your opponent what you're really thinking. That evening, Celeste's penthouse apartment gleamed with the sterile perfection of a luxury hotel suite. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city lights emerging against the twilight sky. She moved through the space with a glass of Cabernet, the rich burgundy liquid catching the ambient light, as she settled at the antique chess table near the windows. The chess set had been her father's hand-carved ebony and ivory pieces that had witnessed thousands of games over decades. She arranged the pieces, methodically recreating the position from an obscure 1950s championship match she'd been studying. Her phone chimed with a calendar notification. Quarterly board dinner, 8:00 p.m., Riverview Club. Celeste dismissed it with a gesture and returned to the board. The social obligations of her position, the dinners, galas, and networking events, had once felt like necessary investments in her career. Lately, they'd begun to feel like transactions yielding diminishing returns. She moved at night, then paused, fingers lingering on the piece. When had chess transformed from her passion to her only genuine companionship? The thought arrived unbidden, unwelcome in its accuracy. At 35, Celeste Hawthorne had everything she'd meticulously planned for control of her father's company, industry, respect, financial independence. Yet the reflection in the window showed a woman alone on a Friday evening, playing chess against herself, while the city below teemed with lives intertwined. She lifted her wine glass silently, toasting her father's portrait on the credenza. "The queen stands alone on the board," she murmured, echoing his favorite phrase. The sentiment had once felt like empowerment. Tonight, it merely underscored the emptiness surrounding her carefully positioned life. Across the city, in an apartment complex that had seen better decades, Liam Carter measured chocolate syrup into warm milk with scientific precision. The kitchen clock showed 7:30 p.m. later than Emma should have her treat, but tonight was special. "Is it ready yet, Daddy?" Emma's voice called from their small living room, where she was arranging chess pieces on their worn board. "Almost, Princess. Just getting the temperature right." Liam stirred the mixture carefully, adding a pinch of cinnamon, Emma's favorite secret ingredient. The ritual of hot chocolate had become their Friday tradition, a small luxury in a life defined by careful budgeting and practical necessities. At 39, Liam moved through their modest apartment with the efficient economy of a man accustomed to making the most of limited resources. His broad shoulders, once the physique of a promising athlete, now carried the invisible weight of single parenthood and financial precarity. He carried the two mugs, one in a chipped World's Best Dad mug, the other in a smaller cup with dancing unicorns, to the coffee table where Emma waited. At 8 years old, she had her mother's delicate features and curious eyes, but Liam's intense focus currently directed at arranging the chess pieces with meticulous care. "Knight goes here, right?" she asked, holding up the carved wooden piece. "Perfect." Liam nodded, settling beside her on their threadbare couch. "Remember the pattern knights next to rooks, then bishops, then king and queen." Emma placed the piece and reached for her hot chocolate, then froze as a familiar tightness gripped her chest. The wheezing started subtly, a slight catch in her breathing that Liam recognized instantly. He was already reaching for her inhaler before she could say anything. "Small breaths, he coached, gently placing the inhaler in her small hand with practiced calm that concealed his constant fear. "Remember what Dr. Rodriguez showed us?" Emma nodded, using the inhaler with the unfortunate expertise of a child who'd grown too familiar with breathing emergencies. The medication worked quickly, her breathing easing as she leaned against her father's side. "Better?" Liam asked, his arm protectively around her shoulders. "Better," she confirmed, reaching again for her hot chocolate, as if nothing had happened. "Can we play the Queen's Gambit tonight? I've been practicing the moves you showed me." Liam's smile masked his concern. The asthma attacks were becoming more frequent, despite the medications and precautions. Emma's medical folder on their refrigerator had grown thicker, the calendar increasingly marked with specialist appointments they could barely afford. "Absolutely," he said, focusing on the present moment, this small island of normalcy in a sea of uncertainty. Show me what you've got, champion. As Emma made her opening move, Liam glanced at the stack of bills partially hidden under a chess strategy book on the side table. The health insurance paperwork was on top, the second notice stamp visible in angry red letters. Next to it lay his work schedule for the Hawthorne building, 60 hours next week across various commercial properties, including additional night shifts that would require finding overnight childcare for Emma. The chess world had once known him as a prodigy, the Carter Kid. Chess forums had called him with his tactical brilliance and intuitive understanding of complex positions. Tournament victories and sponsorships had seemed like the beginning of a career that would provide security and recognition. Then Sarah got sick. Cancer transformed their lives with the brutal efficiency of a clock running out of time. The medical bills accumulated faster than tournament winnings, forcing choices no family should have to make. When she died 3 years ago, Liam had sold the last of their assets to cover the funeral expenses, his chess career becoming a luxury they could no longer afford. Now he cleaned offices for $15 an hour, plus benefits, the kind of steady work that came with health insurance Emma desperately needed. His former life felt like a dream he'd once had, beautiful and distant and utterly irrelevant to the man he'd become. "Daddy, you're not paying attention," Emma's voice pulled him back to the present. "I just captured your pawn." "Very sneaky," Liam acknowledged, refocusing on the board and the daughter who had become his entire world. "But now my bishop has a clear path to your knight." As they played, Liam pushed away thoughts of medical bills and work schedules. For these precious evening hours, their universe contracted to 64 squares, a realm where strategic thinking and focused attention could solve any problem, where a father could teach his daughter that the right moves made with patience and foresight could overcome any position, even when the odds seemed impossible. If only real life worked with such elegant rules. Monday morning found Celeste in her office by 6:30 a.m. reviewing acquisition documents while the city was still waking up. The early hours had always been her most productive before meetings fractured her attention and the day's compromises began accumulating. Jennifer, her executive assistant, appeared at precisely 7:00 with Celeste's preferred breakfast smoothie and the day's schedule printed on cream-colored cardstock. "The legal team needs your signature on the Williams documents by noon," Jennifer noted, placing the smoothie on a coaster. "And Mr. Hawthorne has requested you join him for the meeting with Memorial Hospital administrators and two jurors." Celeste glanced up. "Memorial Hospital isn't on my calendar. It was added yesterday evening. Apparently they're discussing potential partnership opportunities for the cardiac wing renovation." Celeste nodded, mentally adjusting her day. Richard's last-minute additions were becoming a pattern, not quite undermining her authority, but asserting his presence in strategic decisions. A subtle power move, like threatening a queen without actually capturing it. Also, Jennifer continued with the slight hesitation that signaled unofficial information. "Marcus Webb from accounting has been asking about the quarterly projections ahead of schedule, third time this month." "Interesting." Celeste filed this information away. Marcus was Richard's informal intelligence network within the company, ambitious enough to be useful, not talented enough to be threatening. His attention to the projections suggested Richard was planning something that required financial leverage. "Thank you, Jennifer. Please tell legal. I'll have the documents before noon." As her assistant left, Celeste turned to the window. 42 floors below the city operated according to hierarchies and systems, not unlike a chess game, pieces moving according to defined rules and limitations. Power concentrated in particular positions, strategy determining outcomes more often than chance. She had mastered this game by understanding its fundamental truth. Perception created reality. Appear confident and people sensed strength. Demonstrate control and control manifested. Show weakness and the pieces around you responded accordingly. Her father had taught her this lesson during her first corporate board meeting at 22, when male executives 3 times her age had dismissed her market analysis with patronizing smiles. "They see your youth and gender as vulnerabilities," he'd told her afterward. "Use their assumptions as your advantage. The queen is the most powerful piece precisely because she moves in ways others cannot predict." Celeste had internalized this strategy, building Hawthorne Industries from a modest consulting firm into a multinational healthcare technology corporation through calculated risks and an uncanny ability to anticipate market shifts. Her professional success had come with personal costs she'd accepted as necessary sacrifices. friendships that withered under the demands of her schedule, relationships that crumbled beneath the weight of her ambition, or dissolved in the acid of others' jealousy. Love had proven to be a luxury she couldn't afford, not when every relationship seemed to present the same impossible choice between vulnerability and authority, between being desired and being respected. After her last serious relationship ended 3 years ago, she'd stopped trying to reconcile these competing needs, channeling her considerable energy exclusively into the company. Celeste finished her smoothie and returned to the acquisition documents, pushing away the hollow feeling that occasionally surfaced in quiet moments. The Williams merger would secure Hawthorne's position in the medical technology sector for the next decade. That was what mattered, the strategic advancement of the pieces, not the solitary figure moving them across the board. The cleaning crew for the Hawthorne building assembled in the basement service area at 5:00 p.m., just as the majority of corporate employees began their exodus toward parking garages and transit stations. Liam Carter stood slightly apart from the others, reviewing the night's assignment sheet while adjusting the name badge on his gray coveralls. "Carter, you've got executive floors tonight," Jorge, the night supervisor, announced, handing over a security access card. "Gonzalez called in sick again." Liam nodded, accepting the card without comment. The executive floors meant longer hours but fewer actual cleaning tasks. Corporate bigwigs generally created less mess than the marketing department, with their constant food deliveries and overflowing recycling bins. For someone with Liam's methodical efficiency, it might mean finishing early enough to relieve Mrs. Patel from watching Emma before midnight. "And management says extra attention to the 42nd floor conference room," Jorge added, consulting his clipboard. "Some big presentation happening tomorrow." "Got it," Liam replied, loading his cart with supplies. He'd worked enough corporate buildings to recognize the rhythms of business life, the cycles of presentations, deadlines, and strategic meetings that generated their own particular energy. 20 years ago, he had imagined himself on the other side of the cleaning cart, perhaps as a professional chess player with corporate sponsorships, or a strategic consultant leveraging his analytical skills. Life had chosen a different path. As the elevator carried him upward, Liam mentally calculated the night's earnings against Emma's medical expenses. Dr. Rodriguez had recommended a new medication last week, one not fully covered by insurance, but potentially more effective at preventing the severe attacks that sometimes sent them to the emergency room in the middle of the night. 3 extra shifts might cover it if he could arrange childcare. The elevator doors opened on the 44th floor, revealing the hushed opulence of Hawthorne Industries' executive level. Plush carpeting absorbed the sound of his utility cart as Liam moved efficiently through the space, emptying trash bins and wiping surfaces with practiced movements that required minimal conscious attention. His mind wandered to Emma's homework, a science project about the respiratory system. Ironically enough, she'd asked him to help build a model of lungs using balloons and plastic bottles. The project was due Friday, which meant they'd need to work on it tomorrow night between her medication schedule and his morning shift at the Franklin building across town. Liam was replacing the liner in Richard Hawthorne's trash can when he noticed the chess magazine partially buried under discarded papers. He hesitated, then extracted it carefully, the latest issue of International Chess Review, featuring an analysis of the Cinquefield Cup that had concluded last month. His fingers lingered on the glossy cover, muscle memory from another life momentarily overriding his professional boundaries. "Are you interested in chess?" The voice startled him. Richard Hawthorne stood in the doorway, his tailored suit and authoritative posture marking him clearly as someone accustomed to owning any room he entered. Liam quickly returned the magazine to the trash. "Sorry, sir, just cleaning up." Richard waved dismissively. "No need to apologize. You play used to." Liam answered, simply resuming his work with deliberate focus. Richard studied him with the evaluating gaze of someone accustomed to assessing assets and liabilities. "Recreational or competitive?" "Just a hobby," Liam replied, the practiced lie sliding easily from years of use. Explaining his former ranking and abbreviated career would only invite questions he preferred not to answer. "Picked it up as a kid." Richard nodded, losing interest as quickly as he'd gained it. "The conference room on 42 needs attention. We have investors coming in tomorrow morning." "Yes, sir, it's next on my list." As Richard departed, Liam exhaled slowly. These brief interactions with executives always carried an underlying tension, the unspoken hierarchy that rendered him simultaneously essential and invisible. He'd learned to navigate these waters with careful neutrality, neither too familiar nor too deferential. just another functional component in the corporate ecosystem. He continued his rounds working systematically through the executive offices before making his way down to the 42nd floor. The building had grown quieter, the remaining occupants concentrated in isolated pockets of light amid the darkened landscape of cubicles and conference rooms. Liam's phone vibrated in his pocket, a text from Mrs. Patel. Emma asking for bedtime story, okay to call. He paused to respond, yes, 10-minute break coming up. The small freedoms of nighted shift work included these momentary communications with home brief connections to the life that existed beyond the commercial towers and their endless cycles of ambition. Celeste Hawthorne was still at her desk at 8:30 p.m. reviewing the final presentations for tomorrow's investor meeting. The quarterly projections from finance didn't align with the product development timeline from R&D, a discrepancy that would undoubtedly be noticed by the sharp-eyed venture capitalists from Singapore, who were considering a significant stake in their medical imaging division. She rubbed her temples, feeling the first warning signals of a tension headache. The Williams acquisition was proving more complicated than anticipated, with last-minute regulatory concerns threatening to delay the closing. Richard had been unusually insistent on accelerating the timeline, which only intensified her suspicion that he had motivations beyond the strategic benefits he'd outlined to the board. Her office phone lit up Richard's private line. I thought you'd left hours ago, she answered, not bothering with formalities. Just checking if you've reviewed the Singapore presentation, Richard replied. Chen Weiping is particularly interested in the neural network applications. I've promised him something impressive. I'm aware of Mr. Chen's interests, Celeste responded evenly. The technical specifications will speak for themselves without embellishment. Richard's slight chuckle carried a note of condescension. Always the chess player, Celeste, direct and tactical. Sometimes investors need a bit more showmanship. Hawthorne sells medical technology, not illusions, she countered. If the Singapore group needs magic tricks to be convinced, perhaps they're not the right partners. The silence that followed carried more tension than any immediate response would have. Just make sure everything is perfect for tomorrow, Richard finally said, his tone measured. This investment secures phase 3 of the Williams integration. Too much at stake for unnecessary principles. After he disconnected, Celeste leaned back in her chair, contemplating the subtext of the conversation. Richard had been increasingly focused on short-term stock valuations lately, a departure from the long-term strategic vision her father had instilled in the company culture. Something about the Singapore deal felt rushed, almost desperate. She gathered the presentation materials and headed for the 42nd floor conference room. A change of environment sometimes helped clarify her thinking, and she wanted to visualize how the materials would look in the actual presentation space. The conference room was dark when she entered, the floor-to-ceiling windows, offering a panoramic view of the illuminated city below. Celeste switched on just enough lighting to work by a habit from childhood when she would study chess positions by lamplight, finding clarity in the contrast between light and shadow on the board. She arranged the presentation materials on the mahogany table, then paused, reaching into her briefcase to extract the travel chess set she always carried. Some of her best strategic insights came while working through complex positions, a mental exercise that seemed to activate different pathways in her brain. Setting up a particular endgame study that had been challenging her, Celeste lost track of time as she explored the intricate possibilities contained within the arrangement of pieces. The position represented a seemingly impossible situation, black with significant material advantage, white with only a king, a knight, and 3 pawns remaining. Yet within this apparent disadvantage lay a brilliant sequence leading to an unexpected victory. Her father had introduced her to this particular problem during her teens, when she'd been struggling with a school bully targeting her for her academic intensity. Chess teaches us that appearances can deceive, he'd told her. What looks like weakness can become strength when you understand the full range of possibilities. Celeste was so absorbed in the position that she didn't immediately register the soft knock at the conference room door. Liam had nearly completed his assigned floors when his phone vibrated again, another text from Mrs. Patel. Emma having trouble breathing. Used inhaler. Better now, but asking for you. His heart rate accelerated instantly. On my way, he texted back. 30 min max. He'd need to finish the 42nd floor conference room before he could leave. Skipping an assigned area would jeopardize the job he couldn't afford to lose. Pushing his cart with increased urgency, Liam headed toward the final task standing between him and home. The light spilling from beneath the conference room door surprised him. Most offices were empty by this hour. He knocked softly, not wanting to disturb anyone working late, but needing to complete his duties. When there was no immediate response, he knocked again, slightly louder. "Cleaning service," he called quietly. "Come in," a woman's voice responded, distracted and slightly irritated at the interruption. Liam entered, pushing his cleaning cart with practiced quietness. He recognized Celeste Hawthorne immediately. Her image appeared regularly in company publications and business journals. The CEO was bent over what appeared to be a chessboard, her focus so complete that she barely glanced up at his entrance. "I can come back later," he offered, noting her absorption in whatever she was studying. "No need, I'm just thinking." She gestured vaguely toward the other side of the room. "You can work around me." Liam nodded and began his routine, emptying trash bins and wiping down surfaces with efficient, unobtrusive movements. His gaze kept returning to the chessboard, however professional discipline, warring with instinctive interest in the position she was analyzing. It was a classic Troitsky endgame study, one he recognized from his competitive days. White's position appeared hopeless at first glance, but contained a beautiful winning combination requiring precise calculation and counterintuitive moves. He could see from her furrowed brow that she was working through the critical sequence. Celeste shifted a piece, then frowned, resetting it to the previous position. She tried another approach, following the line several moves before again returning to the starting arrangement with a small sound of frustration. Liam continued his work deliberately, averting his eyes from the board, despite the solution that was practically screaming in his mind, the knight sacrifice that appeared to weaken White's position, but actually created an unstoppable pawn promotion sequence. It wasn't his place to comment on an executive's private activities, regardless of his expertise. After completing the standard cleaning procedures, Liam should have simply excused himself and moved on to the next area. Emma was waiting. Mrs. Patel needed to be relieved, and maintaining professional boundaries with corporate executives was an essential survival skill in his position. Instead, he found himself pausing by the door, watching as Celeste attempted another variation that would ultimately lead to a dead end. The chess player within him, that part he tried to bury beneath practical necessities and parental responsibilities, stirred with an almost physical discomfort at seeing the beautiful solution go undiscovered. Celeste must have sensed his lingering presence. She looked up, fixing him with a direct, evaluating gaze that had featured in numerous business profiles, highlighting her reputation for incisive decision-making. "Is there something else?" she asked, her tone not unkind, but clearly expecting a quick resolution to whatever was causing his hesitation. "No, ma'am," Liam replied automatically. Then, against his better judgment, he nodded toward the board. "Interesting position." Celeste's expression shifted subtly, surprise followed by guarded curiosity. "You play chess?" "Sometimes," he acknowledged the understatement, sitting uncomfortably in his chest. She studied him with renewed attention, as if reassessing initial assumptions. After a moment's consideration, she gestured toward the board. "Do you see the solution? I've been working on this endgame for weeks." Professional caution warned Liam to disengage, to apologize for the interruption, and continue with his assigned tasks. Instead, he took a step closer, examining the position more carefully. "Knight to d5, he said quietly. "That loses the knight to the bishop," Celeste countered immediately. "Yes," Liam agreed, "but after bishop takes, knight-king to e3 forces black to make a critical choice." Celeste frowned, playing through the sequence mentally. "If bishop retreats, the h-pawn promotes," she murmured, seeing part of the combination. "But if bishop to g4, then—" "Wait." Her eyes widened slightly as the full sequence unfolded in her mind. "King f2, bishop h3, king g1. She looked up at him with genuine surprise. "The zugzwang forces black to abandon defense of the promotion square." Liam nodded, a familiar satisfaction flowing through him at seeing a complex position correctly analyzed. Troitsky composed it in 1924. It's considered one of the definitive studies on knight and pawn endgames. Celeste leaned back in her chair, her professional mask momentarily replaced by open curiosity. "You seem to know a lot about chess for—" She stopped, apparently reconsidering her phrasing. "For a janitor," Liam finished, his tone neutral. "For someone who said they play sometimes," she amended smoothly. "That's a grandmaster level analysis." Something in her direct acknowledgement of his knowledge without condescension or excessive surprise loosened a knot in Liam's chest. For a brief moment, they were simply two chess players discussing a position the corporate hierarchy temporarily suspended by their shared appreciation for the game's depth. The moment broke when Liam's phone vibrated again. He checked it discreetly, another message from Mrs. Patel. Emma asking when you'll be home. I should finish my rounds, he said, stepping back toward his cart. Celeste nodded, but her gaze remained evaluative, as if recalibrating some internal assessment. Then, with a sudden impulsiveness that seemed to surprise even her, she gestured toward the chair opposite hers. I could use a worthy opponent, she said, resetting the board to starting position. My usual chess partners are either intimidated by my position or deliberately lose to curry favor. I'm still on the clock, Liam responded automatically, though part of him, the part that still dreamed in chess patterns and tactical combinations, leaned toward the offered chair. Consider it a special assignment, Celeste countered with the casual authority of someone accustomed to having suggestions treated as directives. Then, noticing his continued hesitation, she added, with unexpected self-awareness, unless you'd prefer to decline, no professional consequences either way. Liam thought of Emma waiting at home, of the uncompleted cleaning rounds, of the careful boundaries he maintained between his current existence and the life he'd left behind. The responsible choice was clear. Then Celeste made a remark that shifted the equation entirely. Of course, if you're concerned about your ability to compete at this level, I understand completely. The statement was delivered with a slight smile that suggested she was intentionally baiting him, perhaps recognizing the competitive instinct she'd glimpsed in his analysis. It was a simple psychological tactic, transparent in its application and surprisingly effective, despite his recognition of its purpose. One quick game, Liam conceded, setting his phone on silent as he took the offered seat. He could make up the missed cleaning areas afterward, work through his break if necessary. Celeste's smile widened fractionally, the satisfied expression of someone who'd successfully negotiated a desired outcome. White or black? Your choice, Liam replied, settling into the familiar ritual of game preparation, his hands automatically adjusting the pieces to perfect alignment. I'll take white, Celeste decided, rotating the board. Aggressive opening play is my preference. As she advanced her king's pawn to e4, the most classical of opening moves, Liam responded with the Sicilian defense, moving his c-pawn forward 2 squares. The choice was deliberately provocative, creating immediate tactical complications rather than pursuing safer, more symmetrical options. Celeste raised an eyebrow, slightly accepting the challenge by developing her knight to f3 down. You don't play cautiously. Neither do you, Liam observed as the opening sequence unfolded with practiced efficiency on both sides. They settled into the rhythm of early game development, each move executed with the crisp precision of experienced players. Celeste played with aggressive confidence, controlling center space, and developing her pieces toward attacking positions. Liam countered with strategic patience, setting subtle traps while appearing to concede territorial advantage. By the 15th move, the position had evolved into a complex middle game with multiple tactical possibilities. Celeste leaned forward, studying the board with heightened concentration. She was a stronger player than Liam had initially assumed, not quite professional level, but certainly advanced amateur with solid theoretical knowledge and sharp tactical vision. Under different circumstances, the game would have been purely enjoyable, a chance to exercise long-dormant skills against a worthy opponent. But Liam's awareness of time passing, of Emma waiting, of professional boundaries being crossed, created an underlying pressure that made him accelerate his play. You're thinking several moves ahead, Celeste observed, after he responded to her bishop's advance with a counterintuitive knight maneuver. Most casual players react to the immediate threat rather than setting up future positions. Chess rewards foresight. Liam replied, the statement applicable well beyond the 64 squares before them. Indeed, Celeste moved her queen to a seemingly vulnerable position, a calculated risk that would either create a powerful attacking combination or leave her main piece exposed to counterattack. Though sometimes the best opportunities arise from calculated risk. Liam recognized the trap immediately. If he captured the queen with his knight, her rook would sweep in from the back rank, creating a devastating attack against his kingside. Instead, he countered with a quiet, developing move, bringing his bishop to a diagonal that simultaneously protected his king and threatened her pawn structure. Celeste's expression flickered briefly with surprise before settling into deeper concentration. You see the patterns beneath the obvious, she noted, readjusting her strategy. Patterns are everywhere if you know how to look. Liam responded to the conversation, maintaining the same measured pace as their moves. As the game progressed, their respective styles became more apparent. Celeste played with disciplined aggression, her corporate training evident in the methodical pressure she applied across multiple fronts. Liam's approach was more intuitive, with occasional brilliant tactics emerging from seemingly innocent positional plays, the hallmark of natural talent honed by intensive study. 23 moves into the game, Liam orchestrated a queenside combination that forced Celeste to choose between losing a rook or allowing a devastating pawn breakthrough. She studied the position with narrowed eyes, recognizing the dilemma he'd constructed over the previous 5 moves. That was elegantly done, she acknowledged, opting to sacrifice the rook for positional counterplay. You've clearly played at tournament level. Liam made no response, focusing on the board rather than the implied question. 3 moves later, he converted his material advantage into a winning endgame position. Celeste's king stood exposed, her remaining defensive pieces uncoordinated against his precisely aligned attackers. Check, Liam announced quietly as his knight found a square that simultaneously attacked her king and threatened her queen. Celeste shifted her king to temporary safety, but the move weakened her pawn structure, creating new vulnerabilities. Liam's next move exploited these weaknesses with surgical precision. Check, he said, again his bishop cutting across the diagonal to threaten her increasingly isolated king. Celeste studied the position, calculating potential defenses and finding each one insufficient. Her expression remained composed, but Liam recognized the slight tension around her eyes, the universal tell of a chess player seeing defeat materialize move by move. And mate in 3, she concluded, seeing the inevitable sequence that would trap her king regardless of her response. She tipped her king onto its side, the traditional gesture of resignation. Impressive. The victory should have brought satisfaction. Instead, Liam felt a growing unease as professional reality reasserted itself. He just defeated the CEO of Hawthorne Industries, his employer's employer, in a game where his expertise had been deliberately understated. The potential complications of this interaction began to multiply in his mind, like calculating variations in a complex position. "Thank you for the game," he said, rising from the chair with careful neutrality. "I should complete my rounds." "Wait," Celeste said, her tone shifting from chess opponent to executive. "You're clearly not just a casual player. Tournament experience, ranking." Liam hesitated, weighing the implications of disclosure against the complications of evasion. Before he could respond, Celeste's expression changed to one of sudden recognition. "Carter," she read from his name badge, the syllables spoken with dawning realization. Liam Carter. Not the Carter kid from the junior circuits in the early 2000s. The unexpected precision of her identification startled him. "You follow competitive chess." "My father did," she replied. "He had a subscription to International Chess Review. I remember articles about a teenage prodigy from Chicago who was expected to become America's next grandmaster." Her gaze sharpened with renewed assessment. "You disappeared from the tournament scene about 10 years ago." Life changed direction. Liam responded, simply uncomfortable with the scrutiny now focused on his past. "If you'll excuse me, I need to finish." "What happened?" Celeste interrupted, her usual corporate diplomacy temporarily overridden by genuine curiosity. "You were on track for Grandmaster status. The articles predicted international competition, corporate sponsorships. Family priorities." Liam answered, his tone making it clear the topic wasn't open for further discussion. He reached for his cleaning cart, preparing to exit what had become an increasingly awkward situation. Celeste seemed about to press further, then reconsidered her natural strategic instinct, recognizing when to advance and when to retreat. "Of course. Thank you for the game, Mr. Carter. It was illuminating." Liam nodded and exited with his cart relief mixing with the complex emotional residue he couldn't immediately identify. The encounter had activated connections to a part of himself he'd compartmentalized years ago, the calculating competitor, the strategic thinker who could visualize complex positions, evolving moves in advance. As he completed his remaining tasks with mechanical efficiency, Liam's thoughts returned repeatedly to the chess game. He'd played well below his peak abilities, not showing his full strategic depth or tactical precision. Yet even this restrained performance had revealed more than he typically allowed others to see of his former identity. The fact that Celeste Hawthorne had recognized his name from decade-old chess articles added another layer of complication. Corporate executives typically moved in different information ecosystems than the professional chess world. Her specific knowledge suggested either a personal interest in the game or an unusually detailed memory for obscure facts. By the time Liam clocked out and headed for the employee exit, he had rationalized the encounter as an anomaly, an unexpected intersection of past and present that would fade into the background of corporate routine. Executives interacted briefly with service personnel all the time. Tomorrow she would be absorbed in investor meetings and acquisition strategies, the late-night chess game forgotten amid weightier concerns. Thursday morning arrived with a flurry of activity at Hawthorne Industries. The Singapore investors had requested additional technical specifications before their afternoon meeting, requiring last-minute revisions to the presentation materials. Celeste coordinated these changes from her office, simultaneously managing questions from legal about the Williams acquisition and deflecting Richard's increasingly insistent calls about adjusting the projected revenue figures upward. Jennifer, please inform my uncle that the financial projections are based on actual product development timelines, not wishful thinking. She instructed her assistant after the third call. The Singapore group includes 2 former biotech CTOs who will spot inflated numbers immediately. As Jennifer departed with this diplomatic challenge, Celeste found her attention drifting to the chess game from 2 nights before. The unexpected discovery of a world-class player working as a building janitor had occupied her thoughts more than she cared to admit. There was something compelling about the contradiction, the precise strategic mind operating behind the deliberately neutral exterior. Her natural curiosity, the same quality that had made her an effective corporate investigator before ascending to leadership, had been thoroughly activated. Why would someone with tournament-level chess abilities and the potential for professional success choose a maintenance position? What family priorities had redirected such obvious talent? These questions remained background noise throughout her morning meetings, surfacing during moments of transition or brief administrative pauses. By lunchtime, the professional imperative to understand potential anomalies in her corporate environment overcame her usual respect for personal boundaries. Jennifer, she called through the open office door, could you ask HR to send me the personnel file for a Liam Carter? He's on the night cleaning staff. The request was unusual enough that Jennifer appeared in the doorway rather than simply acknowledging via intercom. The cleaning staff is contracted through Metropolitan Services, not direct employees. Is there a concern I should address with facilities? No concern, Celeste clarified. Just following up on something. Please check with the Metropolitan for their personnel records then. Jennifer nodded, professional enough not to question the request further, despite its departure from normal executive interests. I'll see what I can access. While waiting for the information, Celeste conducted her own preliminary research, opening a browser window to search for Liam Carter chess player. The results were sparse but significant archived tournament results, showing impressive victories through his teens and early 20s, a few digitized articles from chess publications highlighting his tactical brilliance and potential forum discussions from over a decade ago, speculating about why such a promising talent had abruptly stopped competing. One particularly detailed forum thread from 2013 mentioned a personal tragedy, though specifics were conspicuously absent. The final post in the thread, from a username Chessmaster1988, simply stated, "Family matters, respect privacy." The discussion had ended there, the chess community apparently honoring the request. By mid-afternoon, Jennifer had delivered a thin folder containing the limited information Metropolitan Services maintained on their employees. The documentation was minimal standard application materials, work assignment, history, performance evaluations. Nothing that explained the transition from chess prodigy to maintenance worker. One detail caught Celeste's attention, however. The emergency contact information listed Emma Carter, daughter, and Maria Patel, childcare provider. The daughter explained the family priorities he'd mentioned, though it didn't account for the drastic career change. Many professional chess players had families without abandoning tournament play entirely. The file also listed previous employers, a succession of maintenance companies and janitorial services over the past 7 years, with generally positive performance reviews, noting his reliability and efficiency. Before that, a 3-year gap in employment history coincided roughly with his disappearance from chess tournaments. Celeste was considering whether to pursue this investigation further when her computer chimed with a calendar reminder the Singapore investors would be arriving in 30 minutes. She closed the folder, refocusing on the immediate corporate priorities that demanded her attention. The investor meeting proceeded successfully with the technical presentation receiving particular praise from Chen Weiping, whose questions demonstrated genuine understanding of the neural imaging technology rather than mere financial interest. Richard seemed unusually tense throughout, especially when Chen requested additional time with the research team before making investment decisions. "We need to close this deal quickly," Richard insisted during a brief moment alone with Celeste after the main presentation. "The Williams acquisition timeline depends on this capital infusion." "Quality investors perform due diligence," Celeste countered. "Rushing Chen will only raise suspicions about why we're pressuring for immediate commitment." Richard's expression tightened. "There are considerations beyond your immediate purview. The board has contingency strategies in development that require certainty about the Singapore funding." "Contingency strategies I haven't been briefed on." Celeste asked, her tone deliberately neutral, despite the obvious governance violations such planning would represent. "Strategic explorations," Richard amended, his practiced corporate smile returning. "Nothing concrete enough to warrant CEO involvement yet. Focus on closing with Chen, that's the priority." As Richard rejoined the investors for the building tour, Celeste remained behind, mentally cataloging the increasing evidence of her uncle's unusual behavior. The accelerated acquisition timeline, the pressure for inflated projections, the undisclosed board's strategies, all suggested some agenda beyond normal corporate expansion. She made a note to have legal conduct a discreet review of recent board communications and to request detailed transaction records from finance for the past quarter. Richard was a skilled corporate operative. If he was manipulating company resources or authority for personal advantage, the evidence would be carefully obscured. Returning to her office after the investors departed, Celeste found the Metropolitan Services folder still on her desk. Liam Carter's employee information, a lingering puzzle amid more pressing corporate concerns. On impulse, she conducted one more search, this time for Sarah Carter's Chicago obituary, acting on a hypothesis that had formed while reviewing the employment gap. The results confirmed her suspicion. Sarah Elizabeth Carter, age 29, had died of breast cancer 7 years earlier. The brief obituary mentioned she was survived by her husband Liam and 3-year-old daughter Emma. The timing aligned perfectly with Liam's departure from competitive chess and the employment gap in his record. The narrative clarified a chess prodigy loses his wife to cancer, leaving him solely responsible for a toddler. Tournament travel, irregular income, and the intense focus required for high-level competition would be practically impossible to maintain as a single parent of a young child. The transition to maintenance work, steady hours, reliable income, consistent benefits represented a rational adaptation to drastically changed circumstances. Celeste leaned back in her chair, an unexpected weight settling in her chest. The story was tragically commonplace in its broad outlines, life's capricious interventions, derailing carefully constructed plans and aspirations. Yet something about the specific transformation from recognized chess talent to anonymous maintenance worker struck a particular resonance. She thought of her father's chess set in her apartment, the position she studied alone in evening hours, the game that had shaped her strategic thinking since childhood. Chess had been her intellectual companion through personal and professional challenges, a constant amid life's variables. For Liam Carter, that same foundational element had been sacrificed to necessity. Celeste closed the file, returning it to Jennifer with instructions to send it back to Metropolitan Services. The brief investigation had satisfied her curiosity, but left an unfamiliar disquiet in its wake. She recognized the feeling belatedly as empathy, not the strategic empathy she employed in negotiations or management, but something more fundamental and uncomfortable. Tomorrow evening, she would work late again. The 42nd floor conference room would need preparation for next week's board meeting. Perhaps Metropolitan's night cleaning staff would include a certain former chess prodigy with unexpectedly complex life circumstances. Perhaps another game could be arranged, this time with full awarenesses of exactly who sat on the opposite side of the board. Emma's science project on the respiratory system stood completed on their small kitchen table, a surprisingly sophisticated model constructed from plastic bottles, balloons, and straws. Liam adjusted the rubber band securing one of the lungs, while Emma prepared her presentation notes on index cards. Remember to explain how the diaphragm works, Liam suggested, pointing to the plastic sheet they'd attached to the bottom of the model. That's what makes your project different from everyone else's. Emma nodded seriously, her small face pinched with concentration as she wrote, "Diaphragm equals breathing muscle," on a card. Miss Peterson said we get extra points for detailed explanation. Liam checked his watch, nearly time for his shift at the Hawthorne building. 3 consecutive nights on the executive floors had disrupted their usual evening routine, but the overtime pay would cover Emma's new medication. Mrs. Patel would arrive in 20 minutes to stay with Emma until morning. "You'll do great tomorrow," he assured her, kissing the top of her head. "Just like we practiced." Emma looked up from her cards with the evaluating gaze that sometimes made her seem much older than 8. "Are you okay, Daddy? You seem different." "Different how?" Liam asked, surprised by her perception. Emma considered this with characteristic seriousness. "Like when you used to play in tournaments, more awake." The observation struck closer than he'd expected. The chess game with Celeste Hawthorne had reactivated neural pathways long dormant, bringing with it a familiar mental alertness he'd almost forgotten. The tactical thinking, the pattern recognition, the strategic planning across multiple potential futures, these cognitive processes had once been the foundation of his identity before pragmatic survival concerns pushed them aside. "Just excited about your project," he deflected gently. "Make sure you practice the whole presentation for Mrs. Patel tonight." As he prepared for work, Liam found his thoughts returning to the recognition in Celeste Hawthorne's eyes when she'd identified him as the Carter Kid. Few people in his current life knew anything about his former chess career, a deliberate compartmentalization that simplified interactions and avoided uncomfortable questions about why someone with his abilities was cleaning office buildings. The night's assignment sheet listed the executive floors again, including specific preparation of the 42nd floor conference room for tomorrow's board meeting. Liam felt an unexpected tension at the prospect of potentially encountering Celeste again, a mixture of professional caution and suppressed competitive interest. He reminded himself of the boundaries necessary for his current life. Corporate executives didn't become friends with maintenance staff. Chess prodigies who became janitors didn't reconnect with their former worlds without complications. Emma's stability depended on the predictable structure he'd constructed from the wreckage of his previous ambitions. Yet as the service elevator carried him upward, Liam found himself mentally reviewing opening variations he hadn't considered in years. Celeste's Friday had been consumed by the fallout from Richard's increasingly erratic behavior regarding the Singapore investors. After Chen Wei-ping requested additional technical documentation that morning, Richard had nearly derailed the entire negotiation by suggesting the information was proprietary and unavailable, a claim Celeste had been forced to contradict diplomatically to salvage the relationship. "The documentation will be provided by Monday," she'd assured Chen during a private call after Richard's departure. "Our technical team is simply formatting it appropriately for your evaluation." Chen had accepted this explanation with the polite skepticism of an experienced investor. "We appreciate Hawthorne's thoroughness," he'd responded, "though we find the contrasting approaches from leadership noteworthy." The implied concern about internal alignment had required additional reassurance about the company's stability and vision. By evening, Celeste had managed to stabilize the situation, but her suspicions about Richard's motives had intensified. The preliminary report from legal had flagged several unusual board communications referencing a contingency restructuring plan that hadn't been formally presented to the executive committee. As the office emptied for the weekend, Celeste remained at her desk reviewing financial projections while considering her next steps regarding Richard's increasingly concerning behavior. The quarterly board meeting on Monday would provide an opportunity to address these issues directly, assuming she could gather sufficient evidence of impropriety beforehand. Her focus was interrupted by Jennifer appearing in the doorway. "The conference room on 42 is prepared for Monday's board meeting," her assistant reported. "Will you need anything else before I leave?" "No, thank you," Celeste replied. "Have a good weekend." After Jennifer's departure, Celeste found herself standing and gathering her chess set into her briefcase. The decision to work in the conference room tonight wasn't entirely strategic. The space offered better views and fewer reminders of pending administrative tasks, but she also acknowledged the possibility of another encounter with Liam Carter. Her research into his background had left her with lingering questions that extended beyond professional curiosity. The sacrifice of exceptional talent for family responsibility represented a value judgment so fundamentally different from her own life choices that it demanded further understanding. The conference room was empty when she arrived, the table polished to a high shine, and the presentation materials arranged precisely for Monday's meeting. Celeste set up her chessboard by the windows, deliberately choosing a complex Sicilian defense position that had been giving her difficulty in recent analysis sessions. At precisely 9:45 p.m., there was a soft knock at the door. Liam had approached the conference room with deliberate professional detachment, prepared to complete his assigned task efficiently and move on to the next area. Finding Celeste Hawthorne there again, bent over another chess position, created a sense of déjà vu that momentarily disrupted his carefully maintained work persona. "Good evening," he said formally after she had acknowledged his knock. "I need to check the room preparation for Monday's meeting." Celeste looked up from the board, her expression neutral but observant. "Of course, though it appears your colleagues have already done a thorough job." Liam nodded, performing a perfunctory inspection of the room while maintaining a careful professional distance. The interaction might have ended there, a brief, forgettable encounter between employer and service provider, had Celeste not spoken again as he turned to leave. "I've been analyzing the poison pawn variation," she said, gesturing to the board. "Black's position becomes quite precarious after accepting White's queenside gambit." The reference to a specific chess opening variation was clearly deliberate, an invitation to engagement that acknowledged their shared understanding. Liam hesitated, professional caution warring with intellectual interest. "The complications are manageable with precise play," he responded, finally unable to resist the technical discussion. Fisher demonstrated the defensive resources in his games against Spassky. Celeste nodded, a hint of satisfaction in her expression at having drawn him into the conversation. "I've been reviewing those games. Fisher's calculating ability was remarkable, seeing 10 moves deep in positions most grandmasters found impenetrable." The implicit comparison to Liam's own abilities hung in the air, neither acknowledged nor denied. He should have excused himself, then maintained the professional boundaries essential to his current existence. Instead, he found himself moving closer to the board, examining the position with genuine interest. "Black's queenside development is delayed in this variation," he noted, indicating the undeveloped bishop. "That creates tactical vulnerabilities if White coordinates an attack properly." "Precisely my concern," Celeste agreed. "I've been trying to identify the optimal defensive sequence." She watched him study the position, then made a direct proposal that cut through the professional formalities. "I have a suggestion, Mr. Carter. I could use a chess coach, someone to analyze positions and play practice games to sharpen my skills. 2 hours a week, professionally compensated at consultant rates." The offer was unexpected enough to momentarily disrupt Liam's careful composure. "I'm not looking for additional employment," he responded automatically. "200 per hour, Celeste specified. "Professional consultation documented through the company's contractor system. Nothing personal or inappropriate, purely chess instruction." Liam calculated quickly. 2 hours of chess coaching would equal nearly 20 hours of maintenance work and compensation. The financial logic was irrefutable, but the professional complications remained concerning. "Why me?" he asked directly. "There are dozens of titled players in the city offering professional instruction." Celeste's expression suggested she appreciated the directness of his question. "3 reasons. First, your analytical ability is exceptional. I've researched your tournament history. Second, discretion. I prefer not to advertise my chess studies to business associates who might misinterpret the time investment. Third, convenience. You're already in the building during evening hours when my schedule permits practice." The reasoning was logical, pragmatic, even professionally appropriate. Yet Liam sensed underlying motivations, not explicitly stated, perhaps curiosity about his unusual career trajectory or something more personal that he couldn't immediately identify. "I have family responsibilities in the evenings," he said, neither accepting nor rejecting the offer directly. "We could schedule sessions immediately after your shift ends," Celeste suggested. 2 hours weekly, whichever evenings work with your child care arrangements." The mention of child care, a subtle indication that she'd researched his personal circumstances, caused Liam to stiffen slightly. "You've been investigating me." "Basic due diligence," Celeste acknowledged without apology. I don't hire consultants without understanding their background and circumstances. The implicit power differential in the exchange, her access to his personal information without reciprocal transparency, created an uncomfortable reminder of their respective positions. Yet the offer itself represented a rare opportunity, significant financial compensation for work that engaged his natural abilities rather than merely employing his physical labor. I'll consider it, Liam said finally, but I would need to make arrangements for my daughter. Of course, Celeste replied, her tone shifting subtly to acknowledge the priority he placed on his parental responsibilities. Take the weekend to consider. If you're interested, I'll have HR prepare the appropriate contractor paperwork on Monday. She extended a business card with her direct contact information, a small gesture that nonetheless represented a significant crossing of organizational boundaries. My cell number is on the back. Text me your decision when you've had time to think it through. Liam accepted the card with a nod, tucking it into his pocket before returning to his cleaning cart. As he exited, he could feel Celeste's evaluative gaze following him, the same calculating assessment she likely applied to potential acquisitions or strategic partnerships. For the remainder of his shift, Liam's thoughts kept returning to the offer. The financial benefit was substantial and would significantly ease the constant pressure of Emma's medical expenses. The work itself would engage cognitive abilities he'd deliberately suppressed for years. Yet the potential complications, personal, professional, and practical, created a decision matrix with no clearly optimal solution. By the time he arrived home, the apartment, quiet with Emma already asleep, he still hadn't reached a conclusion. He found Mrs. Patel dozing on the couch, the television murmuring quietly in the background. "How was she tonight?" he asked after gently waking his elderly neighbor. "Good, good." Mrs. Patel reported, gathering her knitting into her bag. She practiced her presentation 3 times. "Very smart, your Emma. She explained to me how the lungs work better than my doctor does." She paused, studying his face with the perceptive attention of someone who had watched him struggle for years. "You look worried, Liam. More bills?" "No, just a job opportunity," he replied vaguely. "Different from my usual work." Mrs. Patel nodded sagely. "You should take it. You are too smart for cleaning, dude. Emma knows this too. She told me her daddy used to be a champion before her mama got sick." The observation, delivered with straightforward certainty, left Liam momentarily speechless. He'd never discussed his former chess career with Emma, assuming the details of his previous life would mean little to a child born after he'd already abandoned competition. "She found your trophies in the storage closet," Mrs. Patel explained, interpreting his surprise. "Asked me what chess master means. I told her it means her daddy is very, very smart. She was so proud, showing me the pictures of you in tournaments." After Mrs. Patel departed, Liam checked on Emma, finding her sleeping peacefully, her breathing thankfully even and untroubled tonight. The medication was working for now, at least. On her bedside table lay a tournament photo he hadn't seen in years, himself at 17, accepting a trophy at the Chicago Open, focused and confident, his future seemingly predetermined. Beside it lay one of Emma's index cards for her presentation, on which she'd written in careful block letters, "Breathing helps your brain get oxygen, so you can think better and solve problems." The juxtaposition created an unexpected clarity. 2 hours of chess coaching represented not just additional income, but an opportunity to reclaim a part of himself that had been sacrificed to necessity, not for his own sake, but perhaps for Emma's. A child who was proud of her father's former accomplishments deserved to see him engage his abilities rather than merely survive. Liam took out Celeste's business card and sent a brief text. "I can start Monday after my shift ends. 10 p.m. in the conference room." The response came almost immediately. "Excellent. Paperwork will be ready. Bring your analysis of the poison pawn variation we discussed." As he prepared for bed, Liam felt an unfamiliar anticipation, the mental alertness that had once accompanied tournament preparation, a cognitive engagement beyond the mechanical demands of daily survival. For the first time in years, he found himself looking forward to Monday. Saturday morning found Celeste at her kitchen table reviewing board meeting materials while simultaneously researching Liam Carter's tournament history on her tablet. The chess coaching arrangement served multiple purposes. It would provide her with valuable instruction from a player whose natural tactical ability far exceeded her own, while also creating an opportunity to better understand the man whose career trajectory represented such a stark contrast to her own life choices. Her phone chimed with an incoming call, Richard unusually active for a weekend morning. The Singapore group is requesting a tour of the research facilities on Monday morning, he said without preamble. I've already authorized it, but you'll need to make arrangements with Dr. Patterson's team. Celeste frowned at both the substance of the request and Richard's unilateral decision to approve it. The R&D areas are restricted. We don't typically allow outside access before investment commitments are finalized. Chen Weiping won't commit without seeing the neural imaging prototypes in action, Richard countered. This is non-negotiable if we want their capital for the Williams closing. The insistence on accelerating the investment process continued to raise red flags. Richard, what's driving this urgency? The Williams timeline allows for proper investor diligence. A slight pause suggested her direct question had caught him off guard. Market conditions are shifting, he replied finally. Interest rates, competitive positioning, standard strategic considerations. That doesn't explain the board's contingency restructuring plan I've been hearing about. Celeste pressed, deliberately revealing her awareness of these unauthorized discussions. Richard's tone cooled noticeably. Board members are entitled to exploratory conversations about company direction. Nothing formal has been proposed. Exploratory conversations that exclude the CEO suggest governance concerns. I should be aware of, Celeste responded, matching his professional detachment. Focus on securing the Singapore investment, Richard directed, ignoring her implied question. Everything else is secondary right now. After he disconnected, Celeste sat motionless, mentally cataloging the mounting evidence of Richard's unusual behavior. His fixation on the Williams acquisition timeline, the pressure to secure Singapore funding, regardless of proper protocols, the secretive board discussions, all pointed to some hidden agenda operating beneath the surface of normal corporate strategy. She made a note to accelerate the legal department's investigation into recent board communications and to request a comprehensive audit of all financial transactions related to the Williams deal. Richard's actions weren't merely concerning, they were potentially threatening to the company's stability and her own position within it. Setting these thoughts aside temporarily, she returned to her research on Liam Carter, finding tournament records that painted a clear picture of exceptional talent. His rating progression had been remarkable, advancing from skilled amateur to international master level in just 4 years with performances that occasionally had approached grandmaster strength. What struck her most, however, was the abrupt termination of this promising trajectory. 1 month, Liam had been competing in an international tournament in New York, demonstrating brilliant tactical play against established grandmasters. The next month, his name simply disappeared from competition records as if someone had abruptly erased his existence from the chess world. The timing coincided with his wife's illness, according to the dates in the obituary she'd found. Celeste tried to imagine the psychological impact simultaneously facing a spouse's terminal diagnosis while abandoning a career path that had defined his identity and future prospects. The magnitude of such a life reconstruction seemed almost incomprehensible from her perspective of carefully controlled professional advancement. Her research was interrupted by an incoming email from Dr. Sofia Rodriguez at Memorial Hospital, a quarterly update on the cardiac wing renovation project that Hawthorne Industries was partially funding. The name triggered an unexpected connection in Celeste's mind. The Metropolitan Services personnel file had listed Emma Carter's medical issues as respiratory, specifically severe childhood asthma. Memorial Hospital housed the region's leading pediatric pulmonology department, headed by Dr. Rodriguez. On impulse, Celeste picked up her phone and dialed the doctor's direct number listed in the email signature. Sophia, it's Celeste Hawthorne. Do you have a moment to discuss the cardiac wing project? Of course, Dr. Rodriguez replied, professional but warm. The construction is proceeding on schedule. We're particularly excited about the new imaging suite your company's grant is funding. Excellent, Celeste responded. Actually, I have a somewhat unrelated question. Your pediatric pulmonology department, I understand it's among the best in the region. Yes, we've developed some innovative approaches to childhood respiratory conditions. Dr. Rodriguez confirmed curiosity evident in her tone at this change of subject. I recently became aware of a case, a young girl with severe asthma, whose father works indirectly for Hawthorne. Celeste explained carefully, framing the inquiry as general interest rather than specific intervention. I'm curious about treatment options for such cases, particularly regarding access and affordability. There was a brief pause before Dr. Ross. Rodriguez responded, her tone shifting to one of greater personal engagement. You're referring to Emma Carter. The direct identification surprised Celeste. You're familiar with the case. Emma's been my patient for nearly 5 years, Dr. Rodriguez confirmed. One of our more challenging pediatric cases, severe persistent asthma with increasing frequency of acute episodes despite standard treatment protocols. I see, Celeste replied, processing this unexpected direct connection. And the prognosis, Dr. Rodriguez sighed slightly. Potentially manageable with proper treatment, but her condition has been resistant to standard approaches. We've been considering her for an experimental therapy program that's showing promising results in similar cases. What prevents her enrollment? Celeste asked, when recognizing from the doctor's tone that there were complications. The standard issues, insurance limitations program, capacity, constraints, selection criteria. Dr. Rodriguez explained. And frankly, timing of application. The selection committee meets quarterly to evaluate candidates. The next review cycle isn't until January. And if a candidate had strong institutional advocacy, Celeste suggested carefully. Another pause longer this time. Institutional advocacy can certainly impact committee considerations, particularly regarding allocation of limited program slots. May I ask why Hawthorne Industries would take a special interest in this particular case? Celeste considered her response, carefully aware of crossing professional boundaries without clear justification. Let's call it an exploration of our corporate responsibility toward the extended Hawthorne community, she said finally. What would be required to present Emma's case for consideration in the current cycle rather than waiting for January? A formal institutional sponsorship request accompanied by updated medical documentation and support for ancillary costs not covered by standard insurance. Dr. Rodriguez specified. The committee meets next Friday. Submissions would need to be completed by Wednesday. I'll have our foundation director contact you Monday morning to initiate the paperwork, Celeste decided. Please consider this a priority for Hawthorne Industries. After concluding the call, Celeste motionless, somewhat surprised by her own decisive intervention. Corporate philanthropy typically followed carefully structured programs with broad community impact, not individualized assistance targeting specific cases without clear organizational benefit. Yet something about the intersection of Emma's medical needs and Liam's sacrifice potential had triggered an impulse beyond normal professional calculations. Perhaps it was the recognition of how arbitrary fate could be in determining life trajectories, how illness, timing, and circumstance could redirect even the most promising paths into unexpected directions. Or perhaps it was something more personal, a recognition that her own carefully constructed professional existence had succeeded partly through the absence of such disruptive personal obligations. The contrast between Liam's choices and her own created an uncomfortable mirror that reflected certain truths about the costs and benefits of her singularly career-focused life. Whatever the motivation she had now initiated a process that would create a direct connection between Hawthorne Industries and the Carter family beyond the simple chess coaching arrangement. The potential complications of this expanded involvement would require careful management, particularly regarding how and when to inform Liam about her intervention. For now, she decided the medical sponsorship would proceed through standard foundation channels without specific attribution to her personal interest. The chess coaching would remain a separate professional arrangement unconnected to the medical advocacy. Maintaining these boundaries seemed essential to preserving the appropriate professional distance the situation required. Monday evening's maintenance shift proceeded with the mechanical efficiency Liam had perfected over years of janitorial work. His mind, however, operated on dual tracks, the automatic physical routines of cleaning, contrasting with the increasingly active chess analysis occupying his cognitive attention. He had spent Sunday evening reviewing the poison pawn variation after Emma was asleep, rediscovering the particular pleasure of deep tactical analysis. The complexity of the positions with their cascading combinations and counterintuitive sacrifices engaged parts of his mind that had been dormant for years. By morning, he had compiled notes on several critical variations, identifying improvements to the defensive resources Celeste had been struggling to implement. As his shift neared completion, Liam experienced an unfamiliar sensation, anticipation, rather than mere relief at the workday's end. The contracted chess coaching represented something he hadn't allowed himself in years, the opportunity to engage his natural abilities rather than merely surviving through necessary labor. At precisely 10:00 p.m., he arrived at the conference room, having changed from his maintenance uniform into the simple khakis and button-down shirt he kept in his locker for parent-teacher conferences. The small dignity of appearing as himself rather than as a service provider seemed important for establishing the appropriate professional dynamic. Celeste was already there, the chessboard set up with the poison pawn position they discussed. She looked up as he entered, her expression neutral but attentive. "I've had HR prepare the contractor paperwork," she said, indicating a folder on the table. "Standard terms for professional consultation services." Liam reviewed the documents carefully, the hourly rate as promised, with flexible scheduling and a 3-month initial term. Everything appeared straightforward and professionally appropriate, with no hidden obligations or unusual conditions. "Before we begin," Celeste said as he signed the forms, "I want to clarify expectations. I'm looking for honest assessment and challenging instruction, not deferential coaching. I need someone who will push my understanding, not someone concerned with corporate hierarchies." "Understood," Liam replied, appreciating the direct acknowledgement of the unusual power dynamic. "On the board, there are no CEOs or maintenance workers, only chess players making good or bad moves." "Exactly," Celeste agreed, seeming satisfied with his framing. "Shall we begin with your analysis of the poisoned pawn?" For the next 2 hours, they worked through complex variations, with Liam demonstrating defensive resources that created resilient positions despite material disadvantage. Celeste proved to be an exceptional student, analytically sharp, quick to recognize patterns, and genuinely interested in understanding rather than merely winning. "Your calculation depth is remarkable," she observed after Liam demonstrated a particularly complex defensive sequence. "Most players see 3 or 4 moves ahead consistently. You seem to visualize 7 or 8 without apparent effort." "Pattern recognition more than calculation," Liam explained. "After enough exposure to similar positions, you develop an intuitive sense for which variations merit deeper analysis." "Like business strategy," Celeste noted, "experience creates recognition of which potential future scenarios deserve serious consideration versus which can be safely disregarded." The observation highlighted something Liam had long understood but rarely articulated: that chess thinking translated effectively to many complex decision domains. His own professional trajectory might have been dramatically different had he recognized earlier how to leverage his strategic abilities beyond the 64 squares of the chessboard. As their session concluded, Celeste made a suggestion that seemed casually delivered but carried significant implications. "Next week, we should play a full game with classical time controls. I learn best through practical application rather than theoretical discussion." Well, Liam nodded, recognizing that a complete game would require at least 3 hours rather than the contracted 2. "We can adjust the schedule accordingly." "Same compensation rate, of course," Celeste clarified. "I value your time appropriately." The statement carried an unexpected weight, an acknowledgement that his time and expertise deserved recognition regardless of his current employment status. Something about this simple professional respect affected Liam more deeply than he had anticipated. "Next Monday, then," he agreed, gathering his notes. "I'll prepare some analysis of your typical opening repertoire based on tonight's discussion." As he departed, Liam experienced the particular satisfaction that had once accompanied successful tournament performances: the cognitive engagement of complex problem-solving combined with the social validation of respected competition. For the first time in years, he left work feeling intellectually energized rather than merely physically tired. Emma was already asleep when he arrived home, Mrs. Patel dozing on the couch as usual. Her science project had earned an A+, according to the note on the refrigerator, with special recognition for the detailed explanation of diaphragm functionality. The small victories seemed appropriately aligned with his own modest professional re-engagement, both Carter family members exercising their natural abilities after long constraint. The following week established a new pattern in Liam's carefully structured existence. His maintenance work continued as usual, but Monday and Wednesday evenings now concluded with chess coaching sessions in the 42nd floor conference room. These intellectual engagements brought a different kind of satisfaction than he'd experienced in years, the pleasure of exercising abilities that had once defined his identity and potential. Celeste proved to be an ideal student, analytically sharp, genuinely committed to improvement, and respectful of his expertise despite their reverse professional positions during these sessions. Their interactions remained appropriately focused on chess theory and practical application, with personal information emerging only incidentally through their discussions of strategic thinking and decision processes. On the Wednesday of their second week, they had just concluded an analysis of Queen's pawn structures when Celeste mentioned something that momentarily disrupted the careful professional boundaries they'd maintained. The Hawthorne Foundation is expanding its medical advocacy program at Memorial Hospital, she said seemingly as casual conversation while resetting the chess pieces, particularly focusing on pediatric respiratory treatments and experimental therapy access. Liam looked up sharply, his attention suddenly intensified. Memorial Hospital has the pulmonology department treating Emma. Yes, I'm aware, Celeste acknowledged, meeting his gaze directly. Dr. Rodriguez heads the department. She's overseeing our foundation's involvement with their experimental therapy program. The deliberate connection was impossible to misinterpret. You've been investigating my daughter's medical situation. Liam stated, his tone carefully controlled despite the sudden tension he felt. The foundation regularly reviews cases where corporate resources might provide meaningful community benefit. Celeste replied, her corporate diplomatic skills evident in the framing. Emma's treatment profile was identified as potentially benefiting from institutional advocacy regarding experimental therapy access. Liam sat very still, processing both the information and its implications. Why would Hawthorne Industries take a specific interest in my daughter's case? The foundation's mission includes supporting families connected to the company directly or indirectly. Celeste explained, maintaining professional composure despite the increasingly personal nature of the conversation. Emma's case meets all standard criteria for program inclusion. The careful corporate language didn't disguise the fundamental reality. Celeste had used her position to investigate his family's private medical circumstances and initiate some form of intervention without his knowledge or consent. The boundary crossing, however potentially beneficial, represented a significant power imbalance that Liam found deeply uncomfortable. I appreciate the foundation's interest, he said finally, his tone formally polite. But medical decisions for Emma remain solely my responsibility. I wouldn't want corporate philanthropy creating complications or expectations. The foundation's advocacy involves no direct financial assistance to individuals, only institutional support for program access. There are no strings attached or expectations created. Nevertheless, Liam persisted, I would prefer to be consulted before my family becomes the focus of corporate charitable initiatives. Of course, Celeste acknowledged, recognizing the boundary she had crossed. I apologize for not discussing this with you directly. The foundation director will contact you tomorrow with full details of the program. Your participation would be entirely voluntary. The tension lingered as they concluded the session, the easy professional rapport of their chess discussions temporarily disrupted by this reminder of their dramatically different positions within the corporate ecosystem. Liam found himself uncomfortably aware that while he had been focused on chess instruction, Celeste had been simultaneously pursuing a separate agenda involving his daughter's medical care. The following morning, he received a call from Catherine Winters Hawthorne, Foundation Director, explaining the Pediatric Respiratory Therapy Advocacy Program in professionally appropriate detail. The potential benefits for Emma were significant priority consideration for the experimental treatment protocol coverage, for ancillary costs not included in standard insurance, and ongoing institutional support throughout the treatment process. From a purely practical perspective, the opportunity was too valuable to reject based on pride or discomfort with the circumstances of its origination. Emma's health transcended all other considerations. Yet Liam couldn't entirely suppress his unease at finding himself and his daughter suddenly objects of corporate beneficence, particularly when initiated without his knowledge by someone who occupied such a different social and economic position. After careful consideration, he agreed to the foundation's advocacy support while requesting transparent communication about all aspects of the program moving forward. The foundation director assured him that Emma's candidacy would be evaluated on standard medical criteria with no special treatment beyond the institutional advocacy already arranged. That evening, as he administered Emma's regular medications, Liam found himself studying his daughter with renewed attention. The past year had seen a concerning increase in the frequency and severity of her asthma attacks, with standard treatments providing diminishing relief. The experimental therapy program represented legitimate hope for improved quality of life, a medical opportunity that his current financial resources couldn't have secured without institutional intervention. "Why are you looking at me like that, Daddy?" Emma asked, perceptive as always to shifts in his mood. "Just thinking about some new medicine the doctors might try," he answered truthfully. "Something that might help your breathing get better." Emma considered this with her characteristic seriousness. "Will it be expensive? I heard Mrs. Patel telling Mrs. Gonzalez that my medicine costs a lot of money." The directness of the question created a familiar ache in Liam's chest, the recognition that his 8-year-old was already developing awareness of financial constraints that should never have been her concern. "There's a special program at the hospital," he explained carefully, "for kids with breathing problems like yours. The doctors think you might be a good candidate." "Because I'm special?" Emma asked. "Very special." Liam confirmed, kissing her forehead. "And very brave about your treatments." Emma nodded, accepting this assessment with the matter-of-fact resilience that continually amazed him. "Maybe if my breathing gets better, you could play in chess tournaments again," she suggested casually. "Mrs. Patel said you were almost a grand chess master before you had to take care of me." The statement hit Liam with unexpected force, the realization that Emma had constructed a narrative where his abandoned chess career was directly connected to her illness. Before he could formulate a response, she continued with the unfiltered honesty of childhood. "I found your trophies and newspaper articles," she explained. "You look different in the pictures, happier. Mrs. Patel said you were going to be famous before Mom got sick, and you had to work regular jobs to pay for doctors." Liam took a careful breath, suddenly navigating emotional complexity he hadn't anticipated. "Emma, listen to me. Taking care of you has never been something I had to do. It's what I want to do more than anything else in the world. Chess was important to me once, but you are infinitely more important." "But you were really good," Emma persisted. "Mrs. Patel showed me how to look up your games on her tablet. You beat people who were grand chess masters." "Being your dad is better than being a chess master," Liam assured her, recognizing the importance of shaping how she understood these circumstances. "I didn't give up chess because of you. I chose you because nothing else mattered as much." Emma seemed to consider this carefully, her expression suggesting she wasn't entirely convinced. "If my breathing gets better with the special program, would you teach me to play better real tournament chess, not just the easy games we play?" The question carried implications beyond the simple request for instruction, an 8-year-old's attempt to connect with the father she had glimpsed in those tournament photographs, the version of himself he had carefully compartmentalized away from their daily existence. "I'd love to teach you tournament chess," Liam agreed, recognizing an opportunity to bridge these separated aspects of his identity. "In fact, I've started coaching someone recently, helping them improve their strategic thinking." "Really?" Emma's eyes widened with interest. "Who?" "Actually, it's my boss's boss," Liam explained, realizing how unusual it must sound. "She's very smart and wants to get better at chess." "Is she nice?" Emma asked with a child's direct assessment of what truly mattered. Liam considered the question thoughtfully. "She's complicated, very focused on her work. But yes, I think she's trying to be nice in her own way." This assessment seemed to satisfy Emma, who began preparing for bed with her usual methodical attention to her inhaler and medication schedule. As Liam helped her arrange her pillows in the elevated position that eased her nighttime breathing, he found himself contemplating the unexpected connections that had suddenly appeared in his carefully compartmentalized life. Chess coaching, corporate philanthropy, and medical advocacy, all converging through his unlikely professional association with Celeste Hawthorne. Friday afternoon found Celeste in her office reviewing the final presentation for Monday's board meeting, while simultaneously monitoring updates from Dr. Rodriguez regarding the Experimental Therapy Selection Committee. The dual focus represented the increasingly blurred boundaries between her professional responsibilities and her unexpected personal interest in the Carter family's situation. Jennifer appeared in the doorway with her characteristic efficiency. "The legal department has delivered their preliminary report on the board communications you requested," she announced, placing a sealed folder on the desk. "Marcus Webb from accounting has been asking about next quarter's projections again, third time this week." "Thank you, Jennifer." Celeste responded, her attention immediately shifting to the legal report. Please inform Mr. Webb that quarterly projections will be distributed after Monday's board meeting, not before. After her assistant departed, Celeste opened the sealed folder, scanning the executive summary with growing concern. The report documented a series of email exchanges between Richard and three board members discussing a strategic reorganization that would potentially separate the medical imaging division into a standalone entity, with Richard positioned as CEO of the new company. The timing aligned perfectly with Richard's unusual urgency regarding the Singapore investment in Williams' acquisition. If the medical imaging technology represented the crown jewel he intended to extract from Hawthorne Industries, his behavior suddenly made strategic sense, accelerating external investment to fund the division's development before engineering its separation from the parent company. The governance violation was significant, planning major corporate restructuring without involving the CEO or obtaining proper board approval. Combined with the evidence of Richard's misleading statements to investors and his pressure to manipulate financial projections, Celeste now had sufficient grounds to challenge his actions directly at Monday's board meeting. She was still contemplating this strategy when her phone chimed with a text from Dr. Rodriguez. Selection committee reviewing Carter application now. Strong medical case. Decision expected by end of day. The update redirected Celeste's attention to the parallel track of her current concerns, the medical advocacy she had initiated for Emma Carter. Her intervention in this matter represented a significant departure from her typical approach to corporate philanthropy, driven by something more personal than standard professional considerations. She had attempted to frame the assistance in appropriately institutional terms, presenting it as standard foundation outreach rather than specific personal interest. Liam's response, polite but clearly uncomfortable with the boundary crossing, had highlighted the power differential inherent in her unilateral action, regardless of its benevolent intent. Before she could further consider this complicated dynamic, Jennifer's voice came through the intercom. Dr. Rodriguez on line 1. She says it's regarding the Foundation's advocacy case. Celeste picked up immediately. Sophia, do you have an update? The committee has approved Emma Carter's inclusion in the experimental therapy program, Dr. Rodriguez confirmed. Treatment can begin as early as next week, assuming parental consent and completion of baseline assessments. That's excellent news, Celeste responded, genuinely pleased despite her complicated motivations. Have you notified Mr. Carter? I was hoping you might prefer to deliver that information, Dr. Rodriguez suggested, given Hawthorne's advocacy role in the process. The offer created an immediate dilemma. Direct communication about Emma's medical situation would further blur the already complicated boundaries of her relationship with Liam. Yet delegating the notification to Foundation staff seemed unnecessarily formal, given her personal involvement in initiating the advocacy. I think it would be more appropriate coming directly from you as her physician, Celeste decided finally. But please emphasize the Foundation's commitment to supporting the full treatment protocol, including any ancillary costs not covered by insurance. After concluding the call, Celeste found her thoughts returning to Liam's evident discomfort with her intervention in his daughter's medical care. The asymmetry of their positions, her ability to access information and influence institutional decisions that directly affected his family without his prior knowledge or consent, created an uncomfortable power dynamic at odds with the more balanced relationship they had established during chess coaching sessions. She was still contemplating this complexity when her office phone rang again, Richard calling from the board chairman's office. We need to discuss the materials for Monday's meeting, he began without preamble. I've reviewed your presentation draft, and the Williams acquisition timeline needs adjustment. 3 months is too conservative for integration milestones, and the timeline reflects realistic technical and regulatory constraints. Celeste responded immediately on guard, given her recent discoveries about his hidden agenda. Accelerating beyond this schedule creates significant operational risks. The board expects aggressive implementation, Richard countered. I've taken the liberty of preparing an alternative schedule that better reflects our strategic imperatives. The unilateral revision of her presentation materials represented yet another governance violation, a chairman overriding CEO authority on operational execution without proper process. Combined with the evidence from legal about his unauthorized restructuring plans, the pattern clearly indicated a coordinated attempt to undermine her leadership position. I'll review your suggestions, Celeste replied, deliberately non-committal. though any substantial revisions would need to be vetted by the implementation team before presentation to the board. Richard's slight pause suggested frustration with her measured response. This isn't about operational details, Celeste. It's about demonstrating decisive leadership during a critical growth phase. The board is concerned about hesitation at the executive level. The implied criticism was clearly intended to pressure her into accepting his accelerated timeline without proper scrutiny. Rather than engaging directly with this manipulation, Celeste redirected to a more immediate concern. Speaking of board concerns, I've received inquiries about unauthorized discussions regarding potential restructuring of the medical imaging division. She noted, deliberately revealing her awareness of his hidden agenda. Apparently, several board members have been involved in preliminary planning without proper governance protocols. Richard's tone cooled noticeably. Board members routinely discuss strategic options informally. Nothing has been formally proposed outside proper channels. Discussions that include detailed financial modeling and leadership assignments go well beyond informal strategic options, Celeste observed, particularly when they envision significant organizational changes not shared with the CEO. The direct confrontation created a momentary silence as Richard recalibrated his approach. I think we should continue this discussion in person rather than by phone, he suggested finally. Perhaps Monday before the board meeting. I agree completely, Celeste confirmed. I've prepared a comprehensive governance review for the board, including recent communication patterns that raise potential fiduciary concerns. Monday's meeting should provide an appropriate forum to address these issues transparently. After Richard disconnected, Celeste leaned back in her chair, contemplating the corporate chess game that was rapidly accelerating toward a critical position. Richard had clearly been maneuvering pieces for months, cultivating board allies, pressuring for accelerated timelines, positioning himself for control of the company's most valuable technological assets. Monday's confrontation would represent a decisive moment in this corporate struggle with significant potential consequences for both her professional future and the company's strategic direction. The stakes of this corporate conflict made her personal interest in Liam Carter's situation seem almost incongruous. A CEO facing potential board challenge shouldn't logically be concerned with the medical treatment of a maintenance worker's daughter. Yet something about that very incongruity felt important, a reminder that corporate power struggles and strategic positioning weren't the only meaningful measurements of life's value. Her phone chimed with an incoming text from an unfamiliar number. Opening the message, she found a simple notification from Liam Carter door. Rodriguez just called. Emma has been accepted into the experimental therapy program. Thank you for the Foundation's advocacy. The formal phrasing maintained appropriate professional distance while acknowledging the assistance provided. Celeste considered an equally professional response, then decided on something slightly more personal. Excellent news. Wishing Emma successful treatment and improved health. As she sent the message, Celeste found herself wondering how this unexpected connection with the Carter family might evolve, whether the boundaries between professional assistance and personal involvement would remain clearly delineated, or whether the unusual circumstances might create something more complex than either of them had anticipated. Her contemplation was interrupted by Jennifer appearing in the doorway with uncharacteristic urgency. Ms. Hawthorne, there's an emergency call from building security on line 2. They're requesting your immediate authorization for an ambulance at the service entrance. An ambulance, Celeste repeated, immediately alert. What's happened? They didn't provide details, Jennifer reported. Only that it involves a medical emergency with a maintenance staff member's child who was waiting in the service area. Celeste felt a sudden cold certainty even before Jennifer added the confirmation. I believe the name mentioned was Emma Carter. The ambulance's flashing lights cast rhythmic blue shadows across the hospital waiting room as Celeste completed the insurance authorization forms. Through the emergency department's double doors, medical staff swarmed around Emma, whose small body seemed overwhelmed by the oxygen mask and monitoring equipment. Liam stood at her bedside, his face a mask of controlled terror, as Dr. Rodriguez issued rapid instructions to the treatment team. Severe bronchospasm, not responding to initial treatment. Prepare for possible intubation. The medical terminology blurred into an ominous soundtrack as Celeste watched from beyond the treatment area threshold. Her presence here represented a significant departure from normal corporate protocol. CEOs didn't typically accompany maintenance workers' children to emergency rooms or handle their insurance paperwork personally. Yet the moment Emma had collapsed in the Hawthorne Building service area, where she'd been waiting for Liam to complete his shift, conventional professional boundaries had evaporated without conscious decision. Ms. Hawthorne, a hospital administrator, approached with clipboard in hand. Your signature authorized emergency treatment under the Hawthorne Industries supplemental coverage, but we'll need additional approvals for extended care protocols. Celeste signed without hesitation. Whatever treatment is necessary, the foundation will cover all costs not included in standard insurance. The administrator nodded gratefully. That's enormously helpful. The pulmonary crisis team has been activated. They're preparing specialized interventions that often face approval delays with standard coverage. Through the treatment area window, Celeste could see Liam's rigid posture as he maintained physical contact with Emma while staying clear of the medical team's movements. His expression reflected the particular agony of a parent forced to witness their child's suffering without the ability to alleviate it, a helplessness all the more acute for someone accustomed to solving complex problems through analytical thinking. After 30 minutes that stretched like hours, Dr. Rodriguez emerged from the treatment area, her expression cautiously optimistic as she approached. We've stabilized her breathing for now, she reported. The new medication protocol is starting to take effect, though we'll need to monitor her closely for at least 24 hours. Thank God. Liam exhaled the first words he'd spoken since the ambulance arrival. What triggered this episode? She was fine this morning. De Rodriguez consulted her tablet. Environmental factors combined with a physical exertion most likely. The maintenance area where she was waiting has industrial cleaning compounds that could have acted as triggers. Combined with running up several flights of stairs looking for you, she glanced at Liam's uniform. She mentioned trying to surprise you by finding your cleaning area. The implication registered immediately on Liam's face. Emma's crisis had been precipitated by his work environment and her attempt to connect with him. Celeste recognized the particular anguish of a parent blaming themselves for circumstances beyond their control. The building ventilation systems in service areas are being upgraded next month, she interjected, directing the comment to Dr. Rodriguez rather than Liam. I'll have facilities accelerate that schedule immediately. Dr. Rodriguez nodded, turning back to Liam. Emma's responding well to the initial treatment phase of the experimental protocol. This actually provides valuable baseline data for her formal program enrollment next week. She can still participate in the program, Liam asked, hope threading through his exhaustion. Absolutely. Tonight's episode confirms her eligibility criteria, if anything. Dr. Rodriguez glanced at Celeste. The Hawthorne Foundation's advocacy has already secured her position. Tonight's emergency authorization simply activates those protocols earlier than scheduled. As the doctor departed to continue Emma's treatment, Liam and Celeste found themselves alone in the small waiting alcove, the immediate medical crisis resolved, but leaving an altered relational landscape in its wake. The emergency had collapsed professional boundaries and hierarchical distinctions that had previously structured their interactions. CEO and maintenance workers' designations held little meaning in a hospital corridor at midnight, united by concern for a struggling child. Thank you, Liam said finally, the simple phrase carrying multiple layers of meaning. For the Foundation's advocacy, for being here tonight, for the insurance authorizations. Of course, Celeste replied, finding corporate diplomacy inadequate for the situation's emotional reality. Emma's going to be all right. That's what matters. They sat in silence for several minutes, the hospital's muted emergency activities continuing around them. The shared crisis had created an intimacy neither had anticipated, the peculiar connection formed when witnessing each other's responses to extreme circumstances. You can go home, Liam said eventually. I'll be here all night. There's no need for you to stay. Celeste considered the suggestion, mentally reviewing her morning schedule, the Singapore Investors Facility tour preparation for Monday's board confrontation with Richard, the quarterly projections review. All suddenly seemed distant and strangely insignificant compared to the immediate human drama unfolding here. I'd like to stay until Emma's fully stabilized, she decided, unless you'd prefer privacy. Something in Liam's expression shifted, a barely perceptible relaxation of the rigid self-sufficiency he typically maintained. No, he admitted quietly, I wouldn't mind the company. Yima. 3 weeks later, Emma sat cross-legged on a hospital bed, her breathing notably easier as she concentrated on the chest position before her. The experimental treatment protocol had shown remarkable effectiveness, reducing both the frequency and severity of her asthma episodes. Today marked her final inpatient monitoring session before transitioning to outpatient follow-up. Knight to F3 is better than bishop to G5 here, she declared, moving the piece with confidence. It develops with tempo and prepares kingside castling. Liam nodded approvingly from his chair beside the bed. Excellent strategic thinking. Always consider development and king safety in opening positions. Ms. Celeste taught me that yesterday, Emma announced proudly. She said controlling the center is like controlling the middle of the seesaw. It gives you leverage everywhere else. Liam glanced towards Celeste, who sat quietly in the visitor's chair by the window. Her hospital visits had begun as brief professional courtesy, the foundation director checking on a sponsored patient, but had gradually evolved into something more personal. Over the past weeks, she had appeared regularly during Emma's treatment sessions, initially bringing corporate gift baskets and foundation materials, later transitioning to books, chess puzzles, and increasingly frequent conversations with both Emma and Liam. That's a good analogy, Liam acknowledged. Ms. Hawthorne has a talent for explaining complex concepts clearly. Just repeating what I've learned from my coach. Celeste demurred, though her expression reflected pleasure at the acknowledgement. Emma has a natural aptitude for strategic thinking. She's grasping concepts that took me years to understand. Emma beamed at the praise, arranging the pieces for another practice position. Daddy says I might be ready for a real tournament by next summer if my breathing stays good. The medication is making everything easier. I can even run at recess now. The transformation in Emma's condition over the past weeks had been remarkable. The experimental treatment protocol, a combination of targeted immunotherapy and advanced respiratory management, had produced improvements that standard approaches had failed to achieve for years. Her reduced symptoms allowed participation in normal childhood activities that had previously been impossible, from playground games to extended concentration on chess studies, without breathing difficulties interrupting her focus. Dr. Rodriguez mentioned possibly reducing your medication schedule next month if these improvements maintain, Liam noted, carefully monitoring her breathing as she concentrated on the board. The parental vigilance had become second nature over years of managing her condition, though its intensity had diminished somewhat with her recent progress. As Emma arranged pieces for another position, a nurse appeared with the medication and monitoring equipment. "Time for your afternoon assessment, chess champion," she announced cheerfully. "Your dad and Miss Hawthorne can wait in the lounge while we run through your tests." In the hospital corridor, Liam and Celeste walked toward the family waiting area, their relationship now occupying an undefined space between professional association and personal connection. The chess coaching had continued throughout Emma's treatment, but had gradually evolved to include conversations extending beyond strategic analysis into areas of personal philosophy, professional experiences, and shared observations about Emma's progress. The Foundation Board approved the expanded pediatric respiratory program yesterday, Celeste mentioned as they found seats in the quiet lounge area. Memorial Hospital will receive funding for 10 additional patients in the experimental protocol, with priority for families with limited insurance coverage. "That's wonderful news," Liam responded. "The difference this treatment has made for Emma, other families deserve that same opportunity. Your detailed documentation of her progress was instrumental in securing the expanded funding," Celeste acknowledged. "The case study you prepared demonstrated the protocol's effectiveness more convincingly than abstract research statistics." The collaborative effort to document Emma's treatment response had created yet another connection point between them, Liam contributing his meticulous analytical skills to tracking improvement patterns, while Celeste leveraged her corporate influence to translate those findings into expanded program funding. The partnership had emerged organically from their shared interest in Emma's recovery, gradually blurring the boundaries between professional cooperation and personal investment. "Emma mentioned you visited yesterday afternoon." Liam noted a question implicit in the observation. "I had a foundation meeting on the pediatric floor and stopped by afterward," Celeste explained. "She was practicing chess positions and asked for some pointers. I hope that was all right." "Of course," Liam assured her. "She talks about your visits constantly. Your chess analogies seem to connect with her thinking process particularly well." Something shifted in Celeste's expression, a momentary vulnerability breaking through her typically composed professional demeanor. I never expected to enjoy spending time with an 8-year-old so much, she admitted. Emma has a remarkable way of cutting through complexity to find the essential truth in situations, a quality I wish more adults possessed. Liam agreed with a slight smile, though it can be disconcerting when she applies that perceptiveness to personal matters. She asked me yesterday why I don't have children of my own. Celeste revealed her tone, carefully neutral, despite the personal nature of the disclosure. Said it seemed like I'd be good at being a mom since I explained things without being condescending. The observation hung between them, Emma's innocent assessment inadvertently highlighting fundamental differences in their life choices and circumstances. Celeste's career-focused trajectory contrasted sharply with Liam's family-centered existence, each representing roads not taken by the other. "What did you tell her?" Liam asked, genuinely curious about Celeste's response to such a direct personal inquiry. "The truth," Celeste replied simply, "that I focused on building a company instead of a family, and sometimes the choices we make early in life shape opportunities that come later." She paused, seeming to consider whether to continue. "I also told her that spending time with her has made me reconsider whether those choices were as mutually exclusive as I once believed." The admission carried an emotional weight that momentarily shifted their conversational dynamic. Before Liam could formulate a response, his phone chimed with a text from Dr. Rodriguez. "Emma's assessment complete. Excellent progress. Can review results when you return." As they walked back toward Emma's room, Liam found himself contemplating the subtle but significant evolution in his perception of Celeste Hawthorne. The corporate executive who had initially represented an entirely different world power privilege, professional achievement had gradually revealed dimensions that complicated that simple categorization. Intellectual curiosity, genuine concern for Emma's welfare, and increasingly personal reflections that suggested vulnerabilities beneath the polished professional exterior. Emma greeted their return with characteristic enthusiasm, proudly displaying her improved respiratory measurement charts. "Dr. Rodriguez says I'm breathing better than ever. Can we go to the park tomorrow when I'm discharged? I want to try the swing set without getting tired." "Absolutely." Liam promised, his chest tightening with emotion at such a simple childhood request that had previously been impossible. "We can stay as long as you want." "Can Ms. Celeste come too?" Emma asked, turning expectantly toward Celeste with the straightforward presumption of childhood. "She told me she hasn't been on a swing since she was a kid." The invitation created a momentary pause, an 8-year-old casually proposing a social boundary crossing that adults would approach with greater caution. Celeste's gaze met Liam's, silently deferring to his parental authority regarding appropriate involvement. "Ms. Hawthorne probably has important meetings tomorrow," Liam suggested, offering a diplomatic escape option. "Actually," Celeste responded after a brief hesitation, "my Saturday morning is unexpectedly clear. I'd love to join you at the park if that's all right with your dad." The simple acceptance represented a significant departure from the carefully maintained professional boundaries of their earlier interactions. Chess coaching and hospital visits related to foundation sponsorship could be justified within normal corporate philanthropy frameworks. A weekend park outing crossed definitively into personal social territory. "We'd enjoy the company," Liam decided, recognizing the meaningful shift this represented, while acknowledging the genuine connection Celeste had formed with Emma during her treatment. As they finalized plans for the following day, none of them noticed Marcus Webb passing in the hospital corridor, pausing briefly at the sight of Hawthorne Industries' CEO, engaged in what appeared to be a remarkably domestic scene with a maintenance worker and his daughter. Saturday morning dawned unseasonably warm for late October sunlight filtering through autumn leaves as Liam and Emma waited at the neighborhood park entrance. Emma's excitement about both her hospital discharge and the planned outing had resulted in an early start to their day, arriving nearly 15 minutes before the arranged meeting time. "Do you think Ms. Celeste knows how to pump on a swing by herself?" Emma wondered, scanning the street for approaching cars. "Some grown-ups forget how." "I imagine she'll manage just fine," Liam assured her, checking his phone for messages. The park outing represented unfamiliar social territory. His interactions with Celeste had thus far occurred within structured contexts of work, chess coaching, or hospital visits. A purely recreational engagement introduced new relational dimensions neither had navigated previously. A sleek gray sedan pulled to the curb precisely at the appointed time. Celeste emerged wearing jeans and a casual sweater, a striking contrast to her typical corporate attire. The simple outfit change visually diminished the socioeconomic markers that typically distinguish their respective positions, creating a momentary dissonance in Liam's perception. Right on time, he observed as she approached. Emma's been counting the minutes. Punctuality is a hard habit to break, Celeste acknowledged with a slight smile. Though I did drive around the block once to avoid being unfashionably early. Emma immediately took Celeste's hand, leading her toward the playground, with running commentary about swing techniques and optimal height achievements. The child's unself-conscious enthusiasm created a bridge across the adult awkwardness of social roles in transition, providing a shared focus that simplified their interaction. The morning unfolded with unexpected ease, Emma's energetic exploration of playground equipment interspersed with chess discussions using a portable magnetic set Celeste had brought. Her breathing remained strong despite physical exertion that would have triggered symptoms weeks earlier, each successful activity representing small victories in her ongoing medical progress. Watch how high I can go, Emma called from the swing set, pumping vigorously to gain altitude. Impressive technique, Celeste called back, her normally reserved demeanor softening visibly in Emma's presence. Perfect pendulum motion. Liam observed their interaction from a nearby bench, struck by the transformation in Celeste's typical corporate precision. With Emma, she displayed a natural warmth and playfulness that contrasted sharply with her boardroom persona, laughing genuinely at Emma's observations, listening attentively to rambling childhood stories, and responding with a patience rarely witnessed in corporate settings. Your breathing sounds great even with all this activity, Liam noted as Emma paused for water. Dr. Rodriguez says the medicine is helping my lungs relax instead of squeezing tight, Emma explained, demonstrating with clenching and unclenching fists. And the special treatments are teaching my body not to freak out about normal stuff in the air. That's an excellent explanation of the immunotherapy component, Celeste commented. You should write medical textbooks. Emma beamed at the compliment before racing off toward the climbing structure, her movements displaying a freedom and confidence that represented dramatic improvement from her pre-treatment limitations. I've never seen her with this much energy, Liam remarked as they watched her navigate the equipment. The treatment protocol has been transformative. Dr. Rodriguez mentioned they're seeing similar results across the experimental cohort, Celeste noted. The foundation's expanding funding for another 30 patients next quarter based on these outcomes. Their conversation flowed with surprising ease, transitioning between Emma's progress chess theory and increasingly personal observations about their respective worlds. The park setting neutral territory beyond corporate hierarchies facilitated exchanges that might have seemed inappropriate within the Hawthorne building's structured environment. Emma asked me an interesting question yesterday, Liam mentioned as they watched her organizing an impromptu game with other children. She wanted to know if you were my friend or my boss. Celeste's expression registered surprise followed by thoughtful consideration. What did you tell her? That relationships don't always fit into simple categories, Liam replied, that people can connect on multiple levels simultaneously. A diplomatically accurate response, Celeste observed with a hint of amusement, though I'm curious how you actually categorize our association. The question created a momentary pause as Liam considered the complex evolution of their relationship over recent weeks. Initially clearly defined professional roles, employer and contractor essentially. Then perhaps mentor and student in chess contexts, though with our positions reversed. Recently, he hesitated, searching for appropriate terminology. Recently, something less easily defined. I've been contemplating similar classification challenges, Celeste admitted. Corporate policy manuals don't provide adequate relationship categories for CEOs who play chess with maintenance staff and visit their children in hospitals. The observation carried a self-deprecating humor that acknowledged the unusual nature of their connection without dismissing its significance. Before Liam could respond, Emma returned breathlessly with a dandelion seed head clutched carefully in her hand. Make a wish and blow, she instructed Celeste, solemnly offering the delicate sphere. Daddy says they're wish flowers. Celeste accepted the offering with surprising reverence, closing her eyes briefly before gently blowing the seeds into the autumn breeze. The simple childhood ritual revealed yet another contrast with her typical executive precision, a willingness to engage with whimsical impossibilities that corporate leadership rarely permitted. What did you wish for? Emma asked immediately. If she tells you it won't come true, Liam reminded gently, that's only for birthday candles. Emma corrected with the absolute certainty of childhood. Wish flowers are different. Never the wish of us, Celeste replied with diplomatic skill. Some wishes work better when kept private until they're ready to happen. The morning extended into early afternoon, concluding with lunch at a small cafe near the park. Throughout the meal, Liam noticed Celeste checking her phone with increasing frequency, corporate responsibilities evidently intruding on their social interlude. Important messages, he inquired as Emma departed for the restroom. Board meeting preparation materials. Celeste explained, her expression shifting subtly toward professional concern. Monday's quarterly review has complicated dimensions this cycle. Your uncle's restructuring plans, Liam guessed, recalling fragments of corporate politics she'd mentioned during their chess sessions. Celeste nodded, momentarily surprised by his recall of these details. Richard's been orchestrating a significant governance challenge. Monday represents a critical decision point for Hawthorne's future direction. Hence the increased frequency of late-night strategy sessions in the conference room, Liam noted. I've noticed the preparation materials growing progressively more extensive. Corporate chess with considerably higher stakes than our practice games, Celeste acknowledged. Though similar principles apply: position strength, strategic sacrifice, anticipating opponent movements. The brief exchange highlighted the parallel tracks of their lives, Celeste's corporate leadership challenges operating at a scale and consequence level entirely separate from Liam's daily concerns. Yet their chess discussions had created a shared language for strategic thinking that bridged these disparate worlds, allowing meaningful exchange despite their different contexts. As they prepared to depart, Emma extracted promises from Celeste for future park visits, chess lessons, and potential tournament attendance once her health stabilized further. The casual assumption of ongoing connection reflected childhood's straightforward approach to relationship building, unencumbered by the complex social calculations adults typically employed. Thank you for including me today, Celeste said as they reached their respective vehicles. It was, she paused, seemingly searching for appropriately measured terminology before settling on simple truth. It was wonderful. We enjoyed having you, Liam responded, equally genuine. Emma particularly. And you, Celeste asked the direct question, reflecting a departure from her typical diplomatic indirection. Yes, Liam acknowledged after a brief hesitation. Me too. The simple exchange carried emotional weight beyond its apparent simplicity, an acknowledgement of connection that transcended their initial professional categories. As they prepared to return to their respective worlds, the moment held a quality of suspended possibility, potential futures temporarily visible, before reality's constraints reasserted themselves. Emma's cheerful interruption broke the moment's intensity. Next Saturday, can we have a picnic? As Celeste said she's never had a proper picnic with sandwiches and everything. The innocent proposal highlighted the growing complexity of their situation, Emma's attachment to Celeste developing alongside whatever an undefined connection was evolving between the adults. Liam recognized the potential complications of allowing these relationships to deepen further without clear understanding of their nature and boundaries. We'll see, he responded, maintaining parental flexibility while avoiding definite commitment. Mr. Hawthorne has a very busy schedule. I'll make it work, Celeste countered, her gaze meeting Liam's with quiet determination. Some priorities transcend scheduling constraints. The statement held implications beyond simple picnic planning, suggesting a reevaluation of life priorities that neither would have anticipated weeks earlier. As they said their goodbyes, Liam found himself contemplating the remarkable trajectory that had transformed a chance chess encounter into something increasingly significant for all three of them. Monday morning arrived with thunderstorms matching the atmosphere inside Hawthorne Industries' executive suite. Celeste had been in meetings since dawn, reviewing final documentation for the board confrontation with Richard, while simultaneously managing the Singapore Investors Facility tour. The convergence of these critical business situations after Saturday's personal interlude created a disorienting contrast. Corporate power struggles suddenly juxtaposed against memories of playground swings and chess lessons. The Singapore group is currently in R&D with Dr. Patterson, Jennifer reported, appearing in Celeste's office doorway. Richard intercepted them in the lobby and insisted on personally conducting the tour despite your previous arrangements. Of course he did, Celeste responded, recognizing another tactical move in Richard's ongoing strategy to establish direct relationships with key investors. Please notify security to ensure the visitors don't access restricted areas without proper authorization. The neural network prototypes remain confidential until patent finalization. Already done, Jennifer confirmed. Also, Marcus Webb has requested a meeting before the board session. He mentioned having information relevant to leadership considerations that requires your immediate attention. The phrasing triggered immediate concern. Marcus had long functioned as Richard's unofficial information gatherer within the organization. A pre-board meeting request suggested he possessed intelligence Richard intended to deploy during the governance confrontation. Schedule him for 11:30, Celeste decided, and please ask legal to join that meeting. As Jennifer departed, Celeste returned her attention to the comprehensive documentation package legal had prepared regarding Richard's governance violations. The evidence was substantial: unauthorized restructuring discussions, misrepresentations to investors, manipulation of financial projections, inappropriate access to confidential technology development. Combined, these actions constituted sufficient grounds for the board to remove him as chairman, assuming she could maintain majority support through the presentation. Her concentration was interrupted by a text message from an unexpected source, Emma Carter sending a photo of a hand-drawn chess position with the caption, "Practicing for tournament, Knight Fork Traps Queen." The simple communication created a momentary island of normalcy amid corporate warfare preparation, a reminder of connections extending beyond Hawthorne's political struggles. Celeste responded with brief encouragement before returning to board materials, compartmentalizing her growing personal attachments from the professional battle ahead. The discipline that had facilitated her corporate ascension, the ability to maintain absolute focus on strategic objectives despite emotional crosscurrents, would be essential for navigating the day's challenges. At precisely 11:30, Marcus Webb appeared at her office door clutching a tablet with uncharacteristic nervousness. Though technically a senior accountant, his primary corporate value lay in his network of relationships throughout the organization and his willingness to report information to Richard that formal communication channels might filter. "Thank you for seeing me on short notice." He began, glancing uncertainly at the legal counsel seated beside Celeste's desk. "I have information that may be relevant to today's board discussions. Please proceed." Celeste directed, maintaining neutral professionalism despite her suspicion that whatever Marcus presented would connect to Richard's governance challenge. "I've been compiling documentation regarding potential conflicts of interest within executive leadership." Marcus explained, his discomfort visibly increasing, specifically concerning personal relationships that might impact corporate decision-making. The direction immediately clarified. Richard had somehow discovered her connection with Liam and Emma and intended to weaponize it during the board confrontation. The legal counsel straightened slightly, professional attention sharpening at the implied accusation. "I assume you have specific examples rather than general concerns." Celeste responded evenly, giving nothing away through reaction. Marcus activated his tablet, revealing a series of photographs: Celeste visiting Emma in the hospital, the Saturday park outing, lunch at the cafe afterward. The surveillance implied considerable effort and resources dedicated to documenting these interactions. "These may appear innocuous individually," Marcus continued, clearly reciting prepared talking points. "However, when considered alongside foundation funding allocations and special insurance authorizations," he scrolled to documentation of the experimental therapy program approvals and related financial transactions. "The pattern suggests preferential treatment based on personal relationships rather than standard corporate philanthropic criteria." The legal counsel intervened smoothly. "Mr. Webb, are you suggesting impropriety in foundation allocations that were unanimously approved by the independent foundation board following standard evaluation protocols?" "I'm simply presenting information for consideration." Marcus backpedaled slightly. "Richard, Mr. Hawthorne thought the board should have complete transparency regarding factors potentially influencing executive decision-making." "I appreciate your commitment to transparency," Celeste responded with practiced corporate diplomacy. "Since we're discussing complete disclosure, please share with legal your authorization for conducting surveillance of executive activities outside work hours, including photography of a minor child without parental consent." Marcus paled visibly. "I didn't personally. The documentation was provided to me." "By Richard, presumably." Celeste completed his thought. who apparently authorized private investigators to follow me during personal time, photograph a child receiving medical treatment, and compile confidential foundation records without proper governance approvals. The legal counsel made notes with increasing interest as the conversation revealed that additional ethical violations potentially strengthening their governance case against Richard. The board should simply be aware of unusual personal connections that might influence corporate priorities. Marcus attempted his prepared narrative, rapidly disintegrating under scrutiny. I agree completely, Celeste responded with sudden strategic shift. In fact, I'd like you to present this information personally during today's meeting, including its provenance and collection methodology. The board deserves complete transparency about both the monitoring of executive activities and the ethical considerations involved. The suggestion clearly terrified Marcus, whose position had always depended on operating in Richard's shadow, rather than making direct board presentations that might attach his personal reputation to questionable information-gathering tactics. I don't think that's necessary, he backpedaled rapidly. Perhaps this information isn't as relevant as initially believed. On the contrary, Celeste countered, if Richard considered it significant enough to authorize private surveillance, the board should certainly review it directly, unless, of course, you're uncomfortable with your personal involvement becoming part of the official record. The strategic cornering left Marcus visibly calculating his options, loyalty to Richard warring with self-preservation instincts. I'll need to consider the appropriate next steps, he managed, finally retreating toward the door with considerably less confidence than he'd entered. After his departure, the legal counsel turned to Celeste with professional concern. The foundation connection to the Carter family could create perception issues if presented without context. While technically proper given the foundation's independent approval process, it creates a narrative opening Richard could exploit. Agreed, Celeste acknowledged. Though the surveillance authorization itself constitutes a more significant governance violation than anything the investigation uncovered. Nevertheless, the counsel advised, the board will have questions about the nature of your relationship with the Carters once this information emerges. Having clear professional responses prepared would be prudent. The suggestion highlighted the fundamental challenge defining a relationship that had evolved beyond conventional professional categories without acknowledging dimensions that might create corporate governance concerns. The chess coaching arrangement remained appropriately documented and compensated. The foundation's medical advocacy had followed proper approval protocols, but the personal connection developing alongside these formal structures defied simple corporate classification. Prepare response language, emphasizing the Foundation's expanded pediatric respiratory program, benefiting 30 additional patients beyond the initial case, Celeste directed. The Carter situation represents our pilot implementation leading to broader community benefit, which aligns perfectly with established corporate philanthropy guidelines. As the council departed to integrate this approach into their presentation strategy, Celeste found herself contemplating the irony of Richard's attack vector. His governance violations involved substantial financial self-dealing and organizational manipulation, while his counterattack centered on her personal connection with a maintenance worker's family, a relationship that had actually strengthened corporate philanthropy effectiveness rather than compromised it. The contrast revealed fundamental differences in their respective approaches to leadership and human connection. Richard viewed relationships instrumentally as tools for advancing personal advantage and organizational control. Her evolving connection with Liam and Emma represented something entirely different, an unexpected opening to dimensions of life her career-focused existence had previously excluded. Liam arrived at his shift that evening with unusual trepidation, aware that his family had somehow become entangled in Hawthorne's corporate power struggles. Jorge had mentioned unusual security presence throughout the building, and executives working late into the evening, suggesting the governance conflict Celeste had referenced was reaching critical intensity. "Hey, Carter," Jorge called as Liam gathered his cleaning supplies. "HR wants to see you before you start tonight. Something about schedule adjustments." The unexpected summons triggered immediate concern. HR involvement typically signaled administrative complications or policy issues rather than routine operational matters. As he made his way to the Human Resources Department, Liam found himself mentally reviewing recent interactions for potential policy violations that might have drawn attention. Catherine Winters, the Hawthorne Foundation director, waited alongside the HR manager, her presence intensifying Liam's unease. Foundation involvement suggested connection to Emma's treatment program, potentially jeopardizing medical support that had proven transformative for his daughter's condition. "Mr. Carter, thank you for coming in," the HR manager began with careful neutrality. "Ms. Winters has some information regarding the Foundation's pediatric respiratory program that may impact your daughter's treatment schedule." "There's been a development regarding the experimental protocol," Catherine explained, her expression professionally composed but sympathetic. "The Medical Ethics Committee has flagged potential concerns about selection criteria for participants with corporate connections. They're conducting a review of all program approvals to ensure equitable access standards were maintained." The clinical language barely disguised the underlying reality. Emma's participation in the treatment program was being questioned because of Liam's connection to Celeste. The Foundation director continued with practice delicacy, outlining procedural reassessments and temporary protocol adjustments that effectively amounted to potential program exclusion pending review completion. "Is my daughter being removed from a life-changing medical treatment because of corporate politics?" Liam asked, directly cutting through administrative euphemisms. Catherine's expression revealed momentary discomfort before resuming professional composure. "The Foundation remains committed to supporting Emma's medical needs through standard coverage channels. This review simply ensures our expanded programs maintain appropriate governance standards during leadership transitions." "Leadership transitions," Liam repeated, recognizing another euphemism, masking significant organizational conflict. "The board is currently evaluating certain executive decisions," Catherine acknowledged carefully. "Richard Hawthorne has expressed concerns about Foundation resource allocations that might create appearance of impropriety." The explanation confirmed Liam's suspicion Emma's medical treatment had become collateral damage in Richard's campaign against Celeste. His chess-trained mind immediately calculated several moves ahead, recognizing the strategic leverage being applied through his daughter's vulnerability. "Ms. Hawthorne isn't aware of this program review yet," Catherine added, revealing a critical timing element. "The Foundation Committee made this determination independently, pending board resolution of the larger governance questions." The information completed Liam's strategic assessment. Richard had outflanked Celeste by targeting Emma's treatment through Foundation channels before the board confrontation, creating a fait accompli that would strengthen his governance challenge, regardless of outcome. The calculated exploitation of a child's medical vulnerability to advance corporate positioning represented a particularly cold-blooded tactical maneuver. "When does this review conclude?" Liam asked, focusing on practical implications rather than the strategic manipulation underlying them. "The timeline depends on board resolution of the governance questions," Catherine replied, confirming the direct connection to the corporate conflict. "We're hoping for clarity by week's end." After the meeting concluded with reassurances about temporary medical accommodations that failed to address the fundamental injustice of the situation, Liam found himself standing in the empty corridor, calculations running through his strategic mind with the same precision he once applied to tournament chess positions. Emma's medical progress had been remarkable, each treatment strengthening her respiratory function and expanding her capabilities beyond previous limitations. Interruption now even temporarily risked regression and potential complications. The corporate politics threatening her care operated at a scale and with motivations entirely disconnected from her well-being. His phone vibrated with a message from Celeste. "Board meeting running late. Need to cancel chess session tonight. We'll update when possible." The brief communication revealed nothing about the governance confrontation outcome, though the cancellation suggested continuing conflict rather than resolution. Liam responded with professional acknowledgement, making no mention of the Foundation program review affecting Emma. That particular strategic complication remained his to navigate until corporate leadership questions resolved. As he began his cleaning rounds, Liam found himself calculating options with the same methodical precision he'd once applied to tournament preparations. Emma's medical needs remained the priority objective, with all other considerations: professional position, personal relationships, corporate politics representing secondary factors, subordinate to securing appropriate treatment. Continuation. His maintenance rounds eventually brought him to the executive floor, where unusual activity continued despite the late hour. Security personnel stationed outside the boardroom suggested ongoing governance deliberations, while various executives moved purposefully through corridors, typically quiet by this time of evening. Jennifer, Celeste's assistant, emerged from a side office carrying document folders, her expression suggesting significant organizational turbulence. She recognized Liam with momentary surprise before professional composure reasserted itself. "Mr. Carter," she acknowledged with careful neutrality. "If you're looking for Ms. Hawthorne, the board session is still in progress. Just completing my assigned areas." Liam responded, maintaining appropriate professional distance. "Though if you have a moment, I'd appreciate information regarding Foundation program continuity during leadership transitions." The phrasing, deliberately echoing the Foundation director's earlier terminology, created immediate recognition in Jennifer's expression. "You've heard about the program review," she stated rather than questioned. "I was informed this evening," Liam confirmed. "Timing seems particularly consequential given my daughter's treatment schedule." Jennifer glanced toward the boardroom before responding in lowered tones. "Richard moved several pieces simultaneously once he recognized Ms. Hawthorne's connection to your family. The Foundation program review represents one tactical vector among several." She checked her watch with practiced discretion. "The governance resolution should conclude within the hour. Ms. Hawthorne will undoubtedly address all collateral actions once primary questions resolve." The chess terminology piece's tactical vectors suggested Jennifer understood both the strategic nature of the corporate conflict and Liam's capacity to recognize its dimensions. Her willingness to provide this contextual information, however limited, represented unusual professional courtesy across organizational boundaries. "Thank you," Liam responded, simply acknowledging both the information and the discretion with which it was offered. "For what it's worth," Jennifer added as she prepared to continue her task, "those of us who've worked directly with Ms. Hawthorne recognize the Foundation program expansions represent genuine philanthropic advancement rather than personal favor. 30 additional families benefit from the protocols developed through your daughter's initial participation." The observation carried subtle but significant implication. Organizational recognition that Emma's treatment represented legitimate program implementation rather than inappropriate preferential treatment. This perspective suggested potential organizational support extending beyond Celeste's individual position, depending on governance resolution outcome. As Liam continued his maintenance rounds, the strategic chessboard of Hawthorne's corporate conflict continued evolving beyond his direct observation. Each passing hour represented moves and countermoves in a governance game whose outcome would determine not just executive leadership positions, but potentially his daughter's medical treatment continuation. By shift's end, the boardroom had emptied, executives departing with expressions suggesting significant organizational upheaval, but providing no clear indication of resolution nature. Liam completed his assigned areas with professional thoroughness, despite the underlying tension created by uncertainty regarding Emma's treatment status. He had just changed from his maintenance uniform into street clothes when his phone vibrated with another message from Celeste. "Governance resolution complete. Richard removed as chairman. Need to discuss Foundation program continuation. Can you meet tomorrow regarding Emma's treatment?" The message contained the essential strategic information. Richard's governance challenge had failed, potentially enabling reversal of collateral actions, including the Foundation program review, affecting Emma's treatment. The direct connection between corporate leadership outcome and his daughter's medical care confirmed the calculated nature of Richard's tactical approach. "Available anytime tomorrow," Liam responded, prioritizing Emma's treatment continuation above all other considerations. "Emma has follow-up appointment with Dr. Rodriguez at Memorial at 2 p.m. Celeste's reply came immediately. "We'll meet you at Memorial at 1:30. Foundation director joining to reinstate program participation effective immediately. Board confirmed all Foundation approvals followed appropriate protocols." The rapid resolution reflected Celeste's understanding of treatment urgency and her prioritization of reversing collateral damage from the governance conflict. While the corporate chess game had concluded with Richard's removal, Liam recognized the lingering consequences of tactical maneuvers that had briefly jeopardized Emma's medical care for strategic advantage. As he drove home through late-night streets, Liam found himself contemplating the remarkable trajectory that had brought their lives into such unexpected intersection, from chance chess encounter to corporate governance implications affecting his daughter's health. The connection that had developed with Celeste now carried complications extending far beyond personal relationship considerations, entangling Emma's medical welfare with corporate power dynamics neither had anticipated. Mrs. Patel met him at the apartment door with reassuring calm. "Emma sleeping peacefully. Good breathing tonight. No problems." She gathered her knitting while providing her typical detailed report on the evening's activities. She did her breathing exercises exactly like the doctor showed her. Very responsible girl, your Emma. After Mrs. Patel departed, Liam checked on his daughter, finding her sleeping soundly with even untroubled breathing. The experimental treatment protocol had created dramatic improvement in her respiratory function, each session building upon previous gains to expand her capabilities beyond previous limitations. The Foundation Program review had threatened this progress for reasons entirely disconnected from medical considerations, a reality that created profound disquiet despite the apparent resolution. He sat beside her bed for several minutes, watching the rhythmic rise and fall of her chest, with the particular attention of a parent who had spent countless nights monitoring labored breathing and managing sudden crises. The clinical improvements from the experimental protocol were undeniable, transforming not just her physical capabilities, but her confidence and engagement with the world around her. The Foundation's expanded program would provide similar transformative benefits to 30 additional families, a philanthropic achievement now secured through Celeste's governance victory. Yet the vulnerability revealed through Richard's tactical exploitation remained troubling. Emma's medical welfare temporarily jeopardized through corporate maneuvering beyond their control or influence. As he prepared for bed, Liam's strategic mind continued calculating potential future implications. Richard's removal resolved the immediate governance challenge, but potentially created lingering organizational resentments and alliances that might resurface in different forms. Emma's connection to Celeste through the Foundation program had proven tactically exploitable once. Similar vulnerabilities might exist elsewhere in their increasingly intertwined circumstances. His phone chimed with a final message from Celeste. Just left the office. Richard cleared out personal items with security escort. Singapore investments secured with expanded technical documentation. Most importantly, Emma's treatment schedule continues uninterrupted with additional support resources. We'll discuss details tomorrow. Hope she's sleeping well. The message's structure reflected characteristic prioritization. Corporate matters addressed first, Emma's welfare identified as most significant. The consistent pattern suggested genuine rather than strategic interest in his daughter's well-being, despite the complex corporate context surrounding their connection. Liam responded simply, Emma sleeping peacefully. See you tomorrow at Memorial. As he set his phone aside, Liam found himself contemplating the remarkable contrast between their respective worlds. Celeste navigating billion-dollar corporate governance challenges, while he managed building maintenance schedules and medical appointment. Yet chess had created an unexpected bridge between these disparate realities, establishing shared strategic language that facilitated meaningful connection despite their different contexts. The governance resolution promised continuation of Emma's medical treatment, removing immediate threat to her health progress. Yet the vulnerability revealed through the temporary program suspension suggested necessary reconsideration of their evolving relationship boundaries. Whatever connection was developing between himself and Celeste now carried implications extending beyond personal considerations to include Emma's well-being within complex corporate contexts neither had fully anticipated. Tomorrow's meeting at Memorial Hospital would address immediate medical considerations while potentially beginning more significant conversations about appropriate boundaries for their continuing association. As Liam drifted toward sleep, his strategic mind continued calculating potential futures with the same methodical precision he'd once applied to tournament chess positions, with Emma's well-being representing the essential objective against which all other considerations must be measured. The following day, Celeste arrived at Memorial Hospital precisely at 1:30, accompanied by Catherine Winters and Dr. Rodriguez. Their collective presence suggested comprehensive resolution approach addressing both administrative and medical dimensions of Emma's treatment continuation. The Foundation Board conducted emergency session this morning, Catherine explained as they gathered in Dr. Rodriguez's office. They formally reinstated the expanded pediatric respiratory program with enhanced governance protocols to prevent future politically motivated interruptions. Emma's treatment schedule continues without modification, Dr. Rodriguez confirmed, displaying the updated protocol documentation. The temporary review created no clinical disruption, and her progress metrics remain exceptionally positive. The rapid resolution reflected Celeste's organizational effectiveness, mobilizing necessary resources to reverse collateral damage from the governance conflict. Yet the calculated efficiency contrasted sharply with her visible fatigue. The corporate battle clearly exacting personal toll despite successful outcome. The board has implemented safeguards to prevent similar foundation interference. Celeste added once administrative details concluded. Emma's participation in the experimental protocol is now protected through multiple governance layers independent from executive leadership transitions. The comprehensive solution addressed immediate concerns while establishing structural protections against future vulnerability, a chess player's strategic foresight applied to organizational systems. Yet something in Celeste's expression suggested personal rather than merely professional investment in securing these protections. After Catherine and Dr. Rodriguez departed to prepare for Emma's appointment, Celeste and Liam found themselves momentarily alone in the consultation room, the professional resolution creating space for more personal considerations. "I'm sorry Emma's treatment became entangled in corporate politics," Celeste said directly, professional diplomacy temporarily set aside. "Richard identified your family as potential leverage once he recognized our connection. I should have anticipated that vulnerability. You're not responsible for his tactical exploitation," Liam responded, acknowledging the strategic dimensions while absolving personal blame, though it raises legitimate questions about appropriate boundaries for our continuing association. The observation created a momentary tension, the first explicit acknowledgement that their evolving relationship carried implications beyond personal preference, to include Emma's vulnerability within corporate power dynamics. Celeste's expression reflected recognition of this essential concern, her strategic mind evidently calculating similar considerations. "Richard's removal eliminates immediate strategic motivation for targeting your family," she noted, analyzing the situation with characteristic precision. "The Foundation program protections create structural safeguards against similar exploitation regardless of future leadership changes. Yet Emma's connection to you through our association remains potentially exploitable in different contexts," Liam countered, applying similar strategic analysis. "Her well-being can't be subordinated to corporate positioning under any circumstances." "Agreed completely," Celeste acknowledged without hesitation, which raises fundamental questions about how we define and navigate whatever is developing between us. The direct statement brought their central challenge into explicit focus, the need to establish clear understanding regarding relationship boundaries, given complex interconnections between personal connection, corporate context, and Emma's welfare. Before either could pursue this critical conversation further, Emma arrived with a nurse for her scheduled appointment, effectively postponing deeper exploration of these essential questions. "Ms. Celeste," Emma exclaimed with characteristic enthusiasm, rushing forward with unexpected embrace. "Did you see my chess position? I texted you. The knight fork works every time. Absolutely brilliant tactical combination." Celeste confirmed, temporarily setting aside complex adult considerations to engage with Emma's excitement. "You're developing excellent pattern recognition." As Emma chattered about chess positions and playground plans, the adults exchanged glances, acknowledging the unfinished conversation requiring continuation once immediate medical matters concluded. The governance resolution had secured Emma's treatment continuation while simultaneously highlighting the need for clearer definition of appropriate boundaries for their evolving connection. Dr. Rodriguez's arrival shifted focus to medical assessment, with Emma demonstrating remarkable improvement in respiratory function and overall physical capabilities. The experimental protocol results exceeded initial projections, creating potential for significant reduction in medication dependence and long-term symptom management. Emma's response represents our most successful implementation case, Dr. Rodriguez noted while reviewing measurement charts. Her data has proven instrumental in protocol refinement for the expanded program participants. The observation highlighted an essential reality. Emma's treatment had created benefits extending far beyond her individual improvement to include dozens of families facing similar respiratory challenges. The Foundation program expansion represented genuine philanthropic advancement rather than inappropriate preferential treatment, despite Richard's tactical framing during the governance conflict. As the appointment concluded with updated treatment schedules and medication adjustments, Emma turned to Celeste with characteristic directness. "Are we still having our picnic Saturday? I already planned everything: sandwiches without crusts and lemonade and chess games." The innocent question highlighted their unresolved adult conversation regarding appropriate relationship boundaries. Celeste glanced toward Liam, clearly deferring to his parental judgment, given their interrupted discussion about association parameters. "We'll need to check everyone's schedules," Liam responded diplomatically, maintaining flexibility while acknowledging necessary adult conversation before further social commitments. "There's some grown-up stuff to figure out first." Emma's perceptive gaze shifted between them, her expression suggesting awareness of unspoken complications beyond her immediate understanding. "Is it because of the hospital stuff? Mrs. Catherine said there was a mix-up with my special medicine, but it's fixed now." "Something like that," Liam confirmed, appreciating her intuitive recognition while protecting her from unnecessary corporate complexity. "Nothing for you to worry about." As they prepared to leave, Celeste suggested continuing their interrupted conversation later that evening. After Emma's bedtime, a proposal Liam accepted with recognition of its necessity. The governance resolution had secured immediate medical concerns, while simultaneously highlighting the need for clearer understanding regarding their evolving connection and its potential implications. Emma's parting hug for Celeste carried implicit assumption of continuing relationship emotional attachment, developing alongside medical progress and chess instruction. The genuine affection between them represented yet another dimension requiring careful consideration within their boundary discussions. "Until tonight," Celeste said simply as they separated in the hospital parking area. "Some conversations require appropriate focus." Liam nodded agreement, recognizing the strategic wisdom in postponing critical discussions until circumstances permitted proper attention. Their chess background created shared understanding of position evaluation, recognizing when immediate tactical moves serve strategic objectives and when patient development better served long-term considerations. As he drove Emma home, Liam found himself contemplating the remarkable trajectory from chance chess encounter to their current complex interconnection. Whatever evolved from tonight's conversation would require careful balancing of multiple considerations. Emma's well-being remaining the essential priority, while acknowledging the meaningful connection developing between adults navigating unexpected intersection of disparate worlds. The picnic basket sat packed by the door, sandwiches, carefully prepared with crusts removed as Emma had specifically requested. 3 months had passed since the hospital emergency and Richard's removal as chairman, establishing a new rhythm in their interconnected lives. Saturday outings had become regular occurrences, park visits, museum explorations, and chess tournaments, creating a framework of shared experiences that gradually transformed their unusual association into something resembling family routine. Liam checked his watch, noting they'd had 30 minutes before meeting Celeste at the lakeside park. Emma's respiratory improvements had continued steadily each treatment session, building on previous gains until her condition barely resembled the severe asthma that had once dominated their daily existence. Today marked a significant milestone, her final experimental protocol treatment completed yesterday with Dr. Rodriguez declaring the program an unqualified success. "Almost ready, Daddy," Emma called from her bedroom where she was selecting chess pieces for their portable set. "I want to show Ms. Celeste the Queen's Sacrifice trap we practiced." "Just about," Liam confirmed, mentally reviewing their preparations. The weather forecast threatened afternoon showers, but the morning promised sufficient clear skies for their celebration picnic, a small gathering marking both Emma's medical milestone and the 3-month anniversary of their expanded relationship with Celeste. His phone vibrated with an incoming call, Jennifer, Celeste's assistant, whose number he recognized from previous schedule coordination. Her calling directly on a Saturday morning triggered immediate concern. "Liam, I apologize for the weekend interruption," Jennifer began, professional efficiency barely masking underlying tension. "Ms. Hawthorne asked me to inform you she needs to reschedule today's outing. An urgent situation has developed requiring immediate attention." "Of course," Liam responded automatically, disappointment tempered by practical understanding of Celeste's demanding position. "Corporate emergency." Jennifer hesitated briefly. "It's a bit more complicated. Richard has made certain allegations to the board regarding the Williams acquisition. Ms. Hawthorne is meeting with legal counsel this morning to prepare a response." The careful phrasing suggested significant corporate turbulence rather than routine business complications. Despite his removal as chairman, Richard maintained connections throughout Hawthorne Industries and adjacent business circles, influence that apparently enabled continuing challenges to Celeste's leadership. "Please tell her not to worry about our plans," Liam assured Jennifer. "Emma and I completely understand professional priorities." After disconnecting, Liam contemplated how to explain the cancellation to Emma without introducing unnecessary corporate complexities into her understanding. Her attachment to Celeste had deepened considerably over recent months, their chess sessions evolving into broader mentorship that clearly benefited both. Disappointment was inevitable, but context might help mitigate emotional impact. "Change of plans, sweetheart," he called, moving toward her bedroom. "Ms. Celeste has an unexpected work situation. We'll need to reschedule our picnic." Emma looked up from her chess arrangement, disappointment flashing across her expression before thoughtful consideration replaced it. "Is it because of her mean uncle again? She told me sometimes grown-ups at her company make problems even when they're supposed to be on the same team." The perceptiveness momentarily startled Liam. Emma's intuitive understanding of interpersonal dynamics sometimes exceeded expectations for her age. Celeste had evidently discussed corporate challenges in age-appropriate terms during their conversations, creating broader context for schedule adjustments. "Something like that," Liam acknowledged carefully. "Important business questions that need her attentions today." Emma nodded with surprising maturity. "We should help her. She always helps us." The simple observation highlighted an essential truth. Celeste had consistently prioritized their needs throughout challenging circumstances, from Emma's emergency hospitalization to foundation program continuation during leadership transitions. Their relationship had evolved beyond initial professional parameters to establish genuine reciprocal support, though primarily flowing from Celeste's position of greater resources and influence. "What did you have in mind?" Liam asked, curious about Emma's thinking. "We could bring the picnic to her office," Emma suggested with decisive certainty. "When I have big homework, you always say taking breaks makes my brain work better. Ms. Celeste probably needs a sandwich break to think better about her work problems." The proposal revealed both empathetic consideration and practical solution orientation qualities Emma had increasingly demonstrated since health improvements expanded her engagement with the world. Before Liam could gently explain corporate protocols regarding weekend office access, his phone vibrated with a text message from Celeste herself. "So sorry about today. Richard making new allegations regarding Williams' deal. Preparing board response. Will call when resolved. Please tell Emma I'm truly disappointed to miss our celebration." The personal communication beyond Jennifer's official notification reflected the relationship evolution over recent months, Celeste now recognizing the importance of direct connection rather than exclusively delegating through professional channels. Liam responded with brief encouragement before returning to Emma's suggestion. "You know what? That's actually a thoughtful idea." He decided, recognizing an opportunity to reciprocate support. "Let me send Ms. Celeste a message about possibly bringing lunch to her office later today." Emma's expression brightened immediately. "We can have an indoor picnic, and I can show her my new chess move there instead of at the park." The enthusiasm warmed Liam's chest, his daughter's capacity for joy and adaptive problem-solving, representing remarkable resilience after years of health limitations. Her attachment to Celeste had clearly become significant, raising questions about appropriate boundaries that he and Celeste had been carefully navigating through ongoing, honest communication. His message to Celeste offered simple support, lunch delivery, if helpful, no intrusion if unwelcome, acknowledging her professional priorities while extending practical assistance. Her response arrived surprisingly quickly. "Your timing is perfect. Working through lunch with the legal team. Building security will clear you for 42nd floor access at 12:30. Emma's presence would significantly improve an otherwise challenging day. The affirmative response settled their revised plans, though Liam noted the careful phrasing about Emma specifically rather than general social engagement. Their relationship parameters had evolved toward greater clarity over recent months, genuine friendship with appropriate consideration for their disparate professional positions, and Emma's central importance in any developing connection. "Indoor picnic confirmed," Liam informed Emma, who responded with characteristic enthusiasm. "We'll bring lunch to Miss Celeste's office and provide a strategic thinking break." As they prepared for this modified outing, Liam contemplated the unexpected opportunity to glimpse Celeste's professional environment during active crisis management, a context significantly different from their usual carefully structured interactions. The Williams acquisition had featured prominently in their chess session conversations with Celeste, occasionally using its complex negotiations as strategic analogies during position analysis. Whatever complications Richard had introduced clearly represented significant corporate threat, requiring weekend emergency response. Yet amid this professional crisis, Celeste had created space for their visit, a prioritization choice that reflected genuine valuation of their connection beyond convenient scheduling. Hawthorne Industries headquarters presented a different atmosphere on Saturday: reduced security personnel, minimal elevator operation, and empty corridors creating striking contrast with typical weekday activity. The security officer checked their names against an authorized visitor list before providing temporary access badges and directing them toward a specific elevator bay. Ms. Hawthorne mentioned you're bringing lunch for her team, the officer noted with professional courtesy. Conference room C on 42 has been designated for your use. The procedural details suggested Celeste had arranged their visit with characteristic thoroughness despite crisis circumstances. As the elevator ascended, Emma clutched the small chess set she'd insisted on bringing alongside their picnic basket, clearly planning strategic instruction alongside lunch provision. Do you think Ms. Celeste's lawyer friends like sandwiches without crusts too? She wondered, practical hospitality considerations evidently occupying her thoughts. I imagine they'll appreciate any lunch during an unexpected weekend work session, Liam assured her, mentally preparing for their entrance into Celeste's professional domain under unusual circumstances. The elevator opened directly into an executive reception area where Jennifer waited with professional efficiency despite weekend casual attire. Her expression reflected genuine pleasure at Emma's presence rather than merely diplomatic courtesy. Perfect timing, she greeted them. The legal team just requested a working lunch break. Ms. Hawthorne is concluding a conference call and will join you momentarily in conference room C. She gestured toward a glass-walled meeting space visible down the corridor. I've arranged for beverages and additional seating. The organized reception, despite emergency circumstances, demonstrated Celeste's leadership approach, maintaining operational courtesy even amid crisis management. Jennifer accompanied them to the designated conference room, a spacious area with floor-to-ceiling windows offering spectacular city views. A large oval table occupied the center, surrounded by executive chairs and featuring advanced presentation technology along one wall. Wow, Emma breathed, clearly impressed by the sophisticated environment. It's like a spaceship command center. Jennifer smiled at the assessment. That's not far off. Important decisions get made in this room every day. She helped them arrange their picnic items on one section of the table. The legal team will join you shortly. They've been working since 6 a.m. analyzing document submissions. As Jennifer departed to continue her own tasks, Liam and Emma completed their lunch setup sandwiches, fruit and cookies arranged alongside the building-provided beverages. The corporate environment created unusual context for their picnic, concept transforming casual outdoor meal plans into something resembling formal catering within executive territory. Emma arranged her portable chess set at one end of the conference table, carefully positioning pieces for the combination she planned to demonstrate. Her comfort within this intimidating corporate environment reflected remarkable adaptability, moving confidently through circumstances that might overwhelm many adults. The conference room door opened as Celeste entered, her expression transforming from professional concentration to genuine warmth upon seeing them. Despite weekend timing, she wore business attire, a concession to emergency circumstances that contrasted with their casual clothing. This is an unexpected bright spot in an otherwise challenging day. She acknowledged, embracing Emma briefly before greeting Liam with the comfortable familiarity they'd established over recent months. Thank you both for adapting our plans. Emma's idea entirely, Liam credited honestly. She suggested your brain might work better with sandwich breaks. Emma's absolutely right, Celeste confirmed with a smile that momentarily erased the tension evident in her posture. Strategic thinking requires proper nourishment. Before further conversation developed, several professional-looking individuals appeared at the conference room entrance. Celeste's legal team, judging by their expressions of focused intensity despite weekend attire. Their momentary surprise at finding a child arranged behind a chess set in their working space quickly transformed to polite acknowledgement as Celeste made introductions. My colleagues are joining us briefly for working lunch, she explained to Emma with diplomatic simplicity. They're helping solve a complicated business puzzle today. Emma nodded with characteristic seriousness. Daddy says hard problems get easier when you take breaks and look at them differently. That's why chess players sometimes stand up and walk around during tournaments. The observation elicited genuine smiles from the tense legal team, momentarily humanizing the corporate crisis atmosphere. As they served themselves from the provided lunch options, their conversation shifted temporarily from legal strategy to appreciative comments about unexpected weekend hospitality. Emma just completed her experimental treatment protocol yesterday. Celeste explained to her colleagues, contextualizing the visit beyond simple lunch delivery. We had planned a celebration picnic that I unfortunately had to postpone due to our situation. Congratulations, Emma. The lead counsel responded with sincere warmth despite evident preoccupation with professional concerns. That's significantly more important than corporate documentation review. The brief exchange revealed an essential truth: human health milestones fundamentally outweighed corporate crises in meaningful value hierarchies. As the legal team consumed their hasty lunch conversation, remained carefully general professional concerns temporarily set aside in Emma's presence. After approximately 15 minutes, the legal team excused themselves to continue document review in an adjacent room, leaving Celeste momentarily alone with Liam and Emma. The brief reprieve from crisis management visibly lightened her expression, though underlying tension remained evident. I want to show you my queen's sacrifice trap, Emma announced, gesturing toward her chess arrangement. It works even against really good players. I'd love to see it, Celeste replied, moving to examine the position with genuine interest, despite professional pressures clearly demanding attention elsewhere. As Emma demonstrated her tactical combination, a surprising queen's sacrifice leading to checkmate 3 moves later, Liam observed Celeste's focused engagement, despite corporate crisis looming just beyond the conference room. Her ability to compartmentalize professional demands to provide Emma genuine attention reflected remarkable emotional intelligence. That's brilliantly conceived, Celeste acknowledged when Emma completed her demonstration. The misdirection creates a powerful tactical opportunity. Your strategic thinking continues advancing impressively. Emma beamed with pride at the specific, genuine praise. I've been studying the combinations you showed me last month. The sacrifice looks scary, but actually guarantees winning if you calculate correctly. An excellent metaphor for many life situations, Celeste observed with a thoughtful expression that suggested parallel consideration of her current corporate challenges. Their chess discussion continued briefly before Jennifer appeared at the doorway, her expression communicating urgent professional requirements without explicitly interrupting their interaction. I'm afraid I need to return to our documentation review, Celeste acknowledged, recognizing the signal. The board meets tomorrow morning to address these allegations requiring thorough preparation today. We understand completely, Liam assured her. We'll clean up the lunch items and head home. Emma appeared momentarily disappointed before rallying with characteristic resilience. Can I show you one more chess position before we go? It's really important. Of course, Celeste agreed immediately, despite Jennifer's barely concealed impatience in the doorway. Emma quickly rearranged the pieces into a different configuration, one Liam recognized from their practice sessions that week. This one's called a Zwischenzug, she explained, pronouncing the complex German term with careful precision. It means in-between move. When your opponent thinks you have to make an obvious capture, you make a different move first that changes everything. Celeste studied the position with sudden intensity, her expression shifting from polite interest to strategic recognition. That's remarkably relevant to our current situation, she noted, examining the board configuration with renewed concentration. Sometimes the expected move isn't the optimal move. Something in her tone suggested Emma's innocent chess demonstration had triggered a strategic insight regarding her corporate challenge, the in-between move concept perhaps offering applicable framework for addressing Richard's allegations. Jennifer, please ask the legal team to rejoin us immediately. Celeste requested, her attention still focused on Emma's chess position. I believe we've been approaching this entirely wrong. As Jennifer departed to summon the lawyers, Celeste turned to Emma with genuine appreciation. Your chess demonstration may have just provided the solution we've been missing all morning. The in-between move concept applies perfectly to our documentation strategy. The legal team returned quickly, expressions reflecting confusion regarding the sudden summons during critical preparation time. Celeste directed their attention to Emma's chess demonstration, using the position to illustrate strategic principles with unexpected corporate application. We've been responding directly to Richard's allegations as presented, she explained, indicating the chess position. But just as Emma's Zwischenzug demonstrates, sometimes the optimal response isn't the obvious capture. We need an in-between move that changes the entire positional evaluation. The lead counsel studied the chess arrangement with increasing interest as Celeste outlined strategic parallels. Legal documentation approaches suddenly reconceptualized through chess principles that an 8-year-old had innocently presented. The resulting discussion quickly evolved into specific application considerations, technical legal terminology, gradually replacing chess references. Recognizing the shift towards substantive corporate strategy beyond appropriate inclusion boundaries, Liam began gathering their picnic materials. "We should head home and let you continue your work," he suggested, gently encouraging Emma to pack her chess set. "You've provided far more than lunch." Celeste acknowledged, her expression reflecting genuine appreciation beyond diplomatic courtesy. Emma's chess demonstration sparked the strategic reframing we've been missing. As they prepared to depart, the lead counsel approached with surprising directness. "Thank you for the Zwischenzug concept, Emma. Your chess insight may have just saved Hawthorne Industries significant corporate complications." Emma accepted this assessment with characteristic seriousness. "Chess helps you think better about lots of things. Ms. Celeste taught me that." Their departure featured warm but necessarily brief goodbyes. Celeste's attention clearly pulled toward implementing the strategic reframing Emma's chess demonstration had inspired. As they rode the elevator downward, Emma appeared thoughtful rather than disappointed by the abbreviated visit. "I think we really helped," she concluded with evident satisfaction. "Even more than just sandwiches." "I think you're absolutely right," Liam agreed, genuinely impressed by the unexpected impact of her chess demonstration on Celeste's corporate strategy. The interconnection between their seemingly disparate worlds continued evolving in unpredictable ways, chess principles providing unexpected bridges between professional context and personal relationships. The following Thursday evening, Liam received a call from Celeste as he finished his maintenance shift. Her board presentation had apparently succeeded in neutralizing Richard's allegations through the strategic reframing. Emma's chess demonstration had inspired resolving the immediate corporate crisis while simultaneously strengthening governance protections against future challenges. "The board has approved the final Williams acquisition implementation schedule," she reported with evident satisfaction. "Richard's allegations were unanimously dismissed once we presented our Zwischenzug documentation approach. Emma will be delighted her chess demonstration proved useful." Liam responded, genuinely pleased by the positive resolution. "She's been asking about your business puzzle all week." "I'd like to thank her personally," Celeste suggested. "Perhaps we could reschedule our celebration picnic for this weekend. The weather forecast promises perfect conditions for properly appreciating Emma's medical milestone." The invitation represented return to their established routine after corporate crisis interruption, a welcome restoration of the relationship patterns they'd carefully developed over recent months. Their Saturday picnic unfolded with perfect weather at the originally planned lakeside location, Emma's chess demonstrations interspersed with informal celebration of her treatment completion. "Dr. Rodriguez says my breathing tests are now in the normal range," she announced proudly while arranging chess pieces for tactical analysis. "I can try out for the soccer team next spring if I want to." "That's wonderful news." Celeste acknowledged, her attention focused entirely on Emma, despite the corporate challenges recently resolved. "Your progress has been remarkable." As Emma moved off to explore nearby playground equipment, momentarily satisfied with chess demonstrations completed, Liam and Celeste found themselves alone with rare opportunity for uninterrupted adult conversation. The Foundation Pediatric Respiratory Program has expanded to 50 additional patients based on Emma's treatment protocol results. Celeste mentioned updating information beyond her earlier report. Memorial Hospital is implementing standardized intake procedures for families with limited insurance coverage. That represents significant community impact extension. Liam observed, recognizing the broader implications beyond Emma's individual treatment. From initially helping one child to transforming healthcare access for dozens of families. The board specifically acknowledged this program expansion as evidence countering Richard's allegations regarding preferential resource allocation, Celeste added with evident satisfaction. What began as individual advocacy evolved into substantial community benefit, precisely aligned with Foundation mission objectives. The observation highlighted their relationship's unusual trajectory, beginning with chance chess encounter, evolving through corporate philanthropy connections, and gradually developing into genuine personal association that simultaneously yielded broader community benefits. The intertwined professional and personal dimensions created complex interdependencies neither had initially anticipated. There's something I've been meaning to discuss, Celeste continued, her tone shifting toward more personal territory. The Williams acquisition implementation includes establishing a strategic analysis division focused on competitive market positioning. Liam nodded, recognizing the corporate development she'd occasionally mentioned during chess discussions, though uncertain about its relevance to their personal conversation. I'd like you to consider heading that division, Celeste stated directly, watching his expression carefully. Your strategic analysis capabilities exceed anyone currently within our organizational structure, while your pattern recognition skills would provide significant competitive advantage in market evaluation. The unexpected professional proposition momentarily stunned Liam. Corporate executive recruitment representing dramatic departure from their carefully maintained relationship boundaries. His initial reaction combined surprise with automatic resistance to fundamental life reconfiguration. I have no corporate experience or business education credentials. He pointed out, the practical objection, masking deeper hesitations about identity, transformation, and established life patterns. Neither did Bobby Fischer before becoming world chess champion, Celeste countered smoothly. Strategic thinking translates across domains. Your tournament chess background demonstrates analytical capabilities far exceeding typical MBA qualifications. The direct comparison to Fischer, a chess prodigy whose natural talent transcended formal credentials, suggested careful consideration behind her proposal, rather than impulsive recruitment. Yet significant complications remained unaddressed: practical role transition, challenges alongside deeper questions about appropriate relationship evolution. Working directly for you would create obvious complications given our personal association, Liam noted, approaching the central concern directly. You wouldn't report to me, Celeste clarified immediately. The division operates independently with separate board oversight specifically to address potential conflict of interest concerns. I've already discussed structural governance protections with the board ethics committee. The thorough consideration reflected Celeste's characteristic strategic foresight, anticipating potential complications and establishing appropriate structural safeguards. Yet something in her expression suggested additional motivations beyond simple professional recruitment. Why now? Liam asked directly. Celeste considered the question thoughtfully before responding with unusual personal directness. Partly because the Williams implementation creates natural opportunity for organizational expansion, partly because Emma's treatment completion removes potential perception of employment influencing foundation program access. She paused, seemingly considering whether to continue before committing to complete transparency. And partly because watching you spend your evenings cleaning offices despite possessing exceptional strategic capabilities increasingly feels like witnessing profound resource misallocation. The admission revealed personal motivation extending beyond corporate recruitment objectives, genuine concern about his professional circumstances alongside recognition of abilities being underutilized. Before Liam could formulate response, Emma returned from the playground, momentarily redirecting their conversation toward her playground discoveries. The professional proposition lingered unresolved throughout their afternoon, neither raising the subject again while focusing on Emma's celebration. Yet Liam found himself contemplating the possibility with increasing seriousness, chess-trained strategic mind, analyzing potential futures with characteristic methodical precision. The position offered potential advantages beyond merely improved compensation: intellectually engaging work, utilizing natural abilities, regular schedule, eliminating night shifts and weekend coverage. Healthcare benefits, potentially expanding Emma's treatment options beyond experimental protocols. Yet significant complications remain transitioning between vastly different professional identities, navigating corporate culture without business background, establishing appropriate boundaries with Celeste, given their evolving personal connection. As their picnic concluded with promises of regular chess practice resumption, following the corporate crisis interruption, Liam found himself balancing complex considerations with the same strategic patience he'd once applied to tournament preparation. Celeste had clearly introduced the possibility without expectation of immediate response, a strategic opening move, establishing position without forcing immediate commitment. I'll consider the possibility seriously, he acknowledged that as they prepared to depart. Though significant practical questions remain beyond governance structure considerations. Of course, Celeste agreed immediately. Take whatever time necessary for thorough position evaluation. The opportunity remains available when and if appropriate for your circumstances. The chess terminology position evaluation reflected their shared strategic language while acknowledging the decision complexity extending beyond simple professional advancement considerations. As they separated toward their respective vehicles, Emma's voice interrupted their goodbye with characteristic directness. Are you going to work with Mrs. Celeste now, Daddy? Is that why you were talking about chess jobs? The perceptive question highlighted Emma's remarkable attentiveness to adult conversations despite apparent playground preoccupation. Her awareness created immediate decision requirement regarding appropriate transparency versus unnecessary complexity introduction. Ms. Hawthorne mentioned a potential opportunity, Liam acknowledged carefully. I'm considering whether it might work for our family circumstances. You should do it, Emma declared with absolute childhood certainty. You're really good at chess thinking, and cleaning offices is boring. Plus, we could see Ms. Celeste more often. The simple assessment captured essential considerations while simultaneously highlighting additional complications, Emma's attachment to Celeste representing both potential benefit and boundary challenge within any professional relationship evolution. Her straightforward evaluation stripped away adult complexities to focus on fundamental factors, skills, utilization work, satisfaction, and relationship valuation. Adult decisions sometimes involve complicated considerations beyond the immediately obvious, Liam explained gently, but I appreciate your perspective. Celeste observed this exchange with careful neutrality, clearly recognizing the delicate parental territory. Emma's insights often identify essential truths she acknowledged without directly reinforcing either position. Though your father's right about decision complexity, as they finally separated toward their respective vehicles, Liam found himself contemplating the remarkable trajectory from chance chess encounter through medical emergency to potential professional transformation. The strategic position had evolved through unexpected moves neither player could have anticipated from their initial board positions, corporate CEO and maintenance worker, gradually developing connection that might potentially transform into professional collaboration alongside personal association. Throughout the following week, Liam's strategic mind analyzed the opportunity from multiple perspectives, calculating potential benefits, identifying complications, evaluating necessary adaptations across professional identity dimensions. The practical considerations extended beyond simple career advancement to include fundamental questions about appropriate relationship boundaries with Celeste, given their evolving personal connection. His maintenance rounds frequently brought him past the empty office suite designated for the proposed Strategic Analysis Division physical space, awaiting organizational implementation decisions following the Williams acquisition finalization. Each passage represented tangible reminder of potential professional transformation alongside complex relationship implications requiring careful navigation. Emma's straightforward enthusiasm provided consistent counterpoint to his strategic analysis. Her confidence in his abilities combined with untroubled acceptance of evolving relationship dimensions, creating perspective unencumbered by adult social complexities. Her respiratory improvements continued strengthening her engagement with expanded activity possibilities, each new capability representing victory against previous limitations. By month's end, the Williams acquisition implementation proceeded according to board-approved schedules, corporate operations, stabilizing following Richard's governance challenge resolution. Liam's strategic decisions similarly crystallized through methodical analysis, potential benefits outweighing identified complications, given appropriate structural safeguards and clearly established relationship boundaries. His acceptance of the Strategic Analysis Division position included specific governance protocols addressing potential conflict of interest concerns, separate reporting structures, independent performance evaluation metrics, transparent compensation standards, ensuring appropriate professional parameters regardless of personal relationship dimensions. The career transition represented significant identity transformation, requiring substantial adaptation across multiple life domains. Emma's response to his decision combined unsurprising enthusiasm with characteristic perceptiveness. Now you can use your chess brain for work instead of just games, she observed while helping pack his maintenance uniform for final shift completion. And we don't have to wait until Saturday to see Ms. Celeste. The simple assessment captured essential dimensions. Professional abilities finely aligned with daily activities. Personal relationships integrated within expanding life circumstances rather than artificially compartmentalized through rigid boundary maintenance. The transition represented potential resolution to fundamental tensions that had characterized their unusual association from its inception, corporate CEO maintenance worker, and chronically ill child gradually evolving toward more integrated relationship patterns without their respective positions defining interaction parameters. Celeste's response to his acceptance reflected professional satisfaction alongside personal appreciation, strategic recruitment objective achieved while simultaneously advancing relationship possibilities through reduced circumstantial complications. The structural safeguards represented mutual commitment to appropriate boundary maintenance despite evolving personal connections. The position transition required extensive preparation, professional wardrobe acquisition, corporate culture, orientation, technical business terminology, familiarization alongside strategic methodology, adaptations from chess frameworks to market analysis applications. Yet these practical challenges represented merely surface manifestations of deeper identity, transformation, maintenance, worker becoming corporate strategist, chess enthusiast, reclaiming analytical identity, single father expanding professional horizons beyond immediate survival considerations. His final maintenance shift concluded with modest departmental recognition, Jorge and colleagues marking his departure with genuine congratulations despite evident surprise regarding his unexpected career advancement. The identity transition created inevitable social complications alongside professional adaptations, requiring navigation across multiple relationship contexts simultaneously. "Remember us little people when you're running the company," Jorge joked while helping clear out his maintenance locker. "Some of us will still be mopping floors while you're making million-dollar decisions." The comment highlighted inevitable status change implications. Maintenance colleague becoming corporate executive through transition that inevitably altered relationship parameters across organizational boundaries. Liam's response acknowledged this reality while attempting to maintain authentic connection despite changing circumstances. "The maintenance department operates with more practical wisdom than most executive meetings I've observed." He noted genuine appreciation reflecting years of shared experience rather than diplomatic platitude. Strategic thinking exists at every organizational level regardless of job title or compensation bracket. The observation represented core philosophy underlying his professional transition, recognition that cognitive abilities transcended organizational hierarchies, despite institutional structures frequently obscuring this reality. His unusual career trajectory from chess prodigy through maintenance worker to corporate strategist provided unique perspective across typical organizational boundaries. His first official day as Strategic Analysis Division Director coincided with Emma's soccer team tryout qualification dual milestones, representing transformative life changes following her successful treatment completion. The morning found them both preparing for significant transitions, Emma gathering athletic equipment while Liam adjusted his newly acquired professional attire. "We both have big changes today," Emma observed while organizing her soccer gear. "But we already know we can do hard things." The simple assessment captured their shared resilience through previous challenges, medical emergencies, corporate complications, relationship evolutions, all navigated through persistent adaptation rather than circumstantial surrender. Their capacity for transformation reflected complementary strengths. Emma's straightforward determination alongside Liam's strategic patience, creating remarkable combined resilience. Celeste had maintained appropriate professional distance during his transition, preparation providing necessary organizational information without micromanaging adaptation processes or complicating personal relationship dimensions through excessive workplace interaction. The carefully balanced approach reflected mutual commitment to establishing appropriate boundaries despite evolving connection. As Liam prepared for his first executive leadership meeting that morning, Emma offered final perspective before departing for school with characteristic directness. "Just remember, chess thinking works for everything," she advised seriously. "And if you get stuck, think about what Ms. Celeste would do. She's really good at solving hard problems." The straightforward assessment highlighted their unusual relationship trajectory, corporate CEO maintenance worker, and chronically ill child gradually evolving toward integrated connection that transcended original circumstantial limitations. Emma's perception recognized fundamental character qualities rather than merely positional designations, identifying essential strengths beyond professional titles or organizational hierarchies. Liam's professional transformation represented both significant achievement and navigational challenge. Intellectual abilities finally aligned with daily activities, while simultaneously requiring careful boundary maintenance regarding his evolving relationship with Celeste. The strategic position had developed through unexpected moves neither player could have anticipated from their initial encounter, corporate chess game gradually transforming into something resembling partnership across multiple dimensions. As he entered Hawthorne headquarters through the executive entrance rather than service access for the first time, Liam found himself contemplating the remarkable trajectory from chance chess encounter through medical crisis to professional transformation. The journey represented strategic development neither participant had initially sought, yet gradually recognized as potentially optimal despite conventional boundary expectations. The corporate chess game continued evolving toward increasingly integrated positions, professional collaboration alongside personal connection, strategic partnership transcending original hierarchical limitations. Whatever final position might eventually develop remained undetermined, strategic possibilities extending beyond current visibility horizon, despite careful calculation from both participants. Emma's untroubled acceptance provided essential perspective throughout this evolution, straightforward recognition that relationships transcended conventional categories when based on genuine connection rather than merely circumstantial designation. Her perspective stripped away unnecessary complications to focus on fundamental truths, shared values, complementary strengths, and authentic appreciation, creating foundation for whatever relationship patterns might eventually emerge. The transformation from maintenance worker to corporate strategist represented significant professional advancement alongside more meaningful personal evolution. Chessmaster reclaiming analytical identity while simultaneously expanding relationship possibilities beyond artificially maintained boundaries. The journey had progressed through unexpected moves, strategic sacrifices, and positional complications toward potential resolution, integrating professional capabilities with personal connections previously constrained by circumstantial limitations. As Liam entered the executive conference room for his first leadership meeting, he found Celeste already present alongside various corporate directors. Her professional acknowledgement maintained appropriate workplace parameters, while her expression conveyed genuine appreciation for his presence beyond merely recruitment satisfaction. "Welcome to your first executive committee meeting, Mr. Carter," she greeted with formal courtesy appropriate to professional context. "We're fortunate to have your strategic expertise joining our leadership team." The chess game continued advancing towards positions neither player had initially anticipated, yet both now recognized as potentially optimal despite conventional expectations. Whatever final arrangement might eventually develop remained undetermined, future moves requiring careful navigation across professional and personal dimensions simultaneously. Yet one certainty remained evident, regardless of eventual outcome. The chance chess encounter between CEO and maintenance worker had transformed both participants through unexpected connections transcending conventional boundaries. The strategic position continued evolving toward increasingly integrated possibilities, guided by mutual recognition that sometimes the most powerful moves weren't those initially apparent, but rather the unexpected developments that transformed the entire board configuration toward previously unimagined potential. 1 year later, the modest suburban home bustled with weekend morning activity. Sunlight streamed through kitchen windows as Emma carefully arranged chess pieces on the board that had become the family's centerpiece. The carved ebony and ivory set Celeste had given her months earlier, now positioned permanently on a special table in the breakfast nook. "Tournament positions need to be exactly right," she explained to her father, adjusting the knights with methodical precision. "Ms. Peterson says presentation matters almost as much as play." Liam nodded while preparing breakfast, his movements reflecting the comfortable routine they'd established in their new home. The past year had brought remarkable transformations across every dimension of their lives. Emma's health flourishing beyond all previous medical projections, his professional identity evolving from maintenance worker to respected corporate strategist, their living situation transitioning from cramped apartment to spacious house with a dedicated chess room for Emma's expanding collection. Ms. Peterson knows tournament protocols better than anyone, he acknowledged, referring to Emma's chess coach, who had guided her through increasingly competitive junior tournaments over recent months. Though I suspect your actual play will impress them more than perfect piece alignment. Emma's expression revealed characteristic determination as she completed her preparations. At 9 years old, she had grown taller and stronger since beginning the experimental treatment protocol, her respiratory capabilities now matching her peers rather than limiting her activities. The upcoming Junior Chess Championship represented her most significant competitive challenge, yet regional qualification tournament with participants from 3 states competing for national advancement. Celeste is bringing the special score sheets she ordered, Emma noted, mentioning the custom tournament materials that had arrived from Europe the previous week. She said they are the same kind grandmasters use in world championship matches. The casual reference highlighted another significant evolution: Emma's gradual transition from formal Ms. Hawthorne to simply Celeste in everyday conversation, reflecting the relationship developments that had unfolded alongside professional and health transformations. Their carefully structured boundaries had gradually adjusted toward greater integration while maintaining appropriate parameters given their unique circumstances. The doorbell chimed as Emma completed her tournament preparations. She raced toward the entrance with characteristic enthusiasm, respiratory capacity effortlessly supporting her excited movement in ways that would have been impossible 18 months earlier. Celeste stood on the porch with tournament materials in hand, weekend casual attire contrasting sharply with her typical corporate presentation. Her integration into their weekend routines had evolved gradually, chess coaching expanding into regular family activities that created natural relationship progression without forcing artificial frameworks or uncomfortable expectations. The tournament champion arrives bearing proper documentation, she announced as Emma welcomed her inside, presenting the custom score sheets with ceremonial flourish. European Chess Federation approved, just like we discussed. Emma accepted the materials with appropriate reverence, examining their professional formatting with evident appreciation. These are perfect, way better than the regular school tournament papers. As they moved toward the kitchen, Liam observed the easy rapport between them, Celeste's natural mentorship complementing his parental guidance, while respecting appropriate boundaries they'd carefully established. Their evolving relationship had progressed through thoughtful communication rather than presumptive expectations, creating space for genuine connection without predetermined frameworks. Tournament preparation proceeding according to schedule. Celeste inquired, accepting coffee with the familiarity of regular weekend participation. Emma's been analyzing Grandmaster games every evening this week. Liam confirmed, pride evident in his tone. Her pattern recognition continues developing impressively. The Fischer-Spassky matches are my favorites, Emma contributed while organizing her tournament materials. Their middle game tactics were amazing, even though some people say computers play better now. The observation reflected her growing sophistication tournament competition, exposing her to chess history alongside technical skill development. The respiratory treatment success had enabled pursuit of interests previously impossible, given physical limitations, each new capability representing victory against previous constraints. Their breakfast conversation flowed with comfortable familiarity, tournament strategies interspersed with foundation updates and corporate developments that had become regular topics within their evolving relationship. The Hawthorne Foundation's pediatric respiratory program had expanded to regional implementation across 3 states. Emma's initial treatment success, providing both prototype methodology and compelling advocacy narrative for expanded funding. As Emma moved off to finalize her tournament preparations, Liam and Celeste found themselves momentarily alone in the kitchen, their interaction carrying the comfortable ease of established connection rather than the careful formality that had characterized their early association. The board approved Richard's consulting agreement yesterday, Celeste mentioned, referring to the negotiated settlement that had finally resolved lingering corporate tensions. Limited scope, strictly defined deliverables, and comprehensive non-interference clauses. He seems genuinely satisfied with the arrangement. Tactical retreat transformed into strategic repositioning, Liam observed, applying chess terminology that had become their shared analytical language. Sometimes the most effective resolution allows all pieces to remain on the board in reconfigured relationships. The comment reflected his contribution to the corporate reconciliation process, strategic insights identifying potential compromise positions where competing interests could achieve partial objectives without continuing destructive conflict. His unique perspective as former outsider provided valuable mediation framework during complex negotiations. Your diplomatic approach created possibilities neither side initially recognized. Celeste acknowledged her expression reflecting professional appreciation alongside personal warmth. The corporate chess game has evolved into something more collaborative than I would have imagined possible a year ago. Chess teaches us that perceived opponents can become allies through position transformation. Liam noted the observation applicable beyond corporate context to their own relationship evolution. The most interesting games develop through unexpected connections rather than simple captures. Their conversation paused as Emma returned tournament materials, organized with characteristic methodical precision. Her preparation complete, she regarded them with a direct perceptiveness that continued to exceed expectations for her age. "I've been thinking about something important," she announced with typical forthright approach. "Remember how you said families come in different forms? I think we've figured out our form now." The observation highlighted Emma's remarkable intuitive understanding of their carefully constructed relationship, the gradual evolution from chess coach and student to something resembling family without requiring traditional definitions or structures. Her childhood directness stripped away complicated adult considerations to focus on essential emotional reality. "I believe you're right," Celeste agreed with unusual openness, her typically careful corporate diplomacy momentarily set aside. "Some of the most meaningful connections develop through unexpected circumstances rather than conventional pathways." Like chess, Emma concluded with satisfaction, returning to her favorite analytical framework. "The best games happen when pieces move in surprising ways that nobody planned at the beginning." As they prepared for tournament departure, Liam contemplated the remarkable trajectory from their first chance encounter, corporate CEO and maintenance worker, connected through chess, gradually developing relationship dimensions neither could have anticipated during that initial meeting. The strategic position had evolved through unexpected moves, tactical adjustments, and careful boundary negotiations to create something uniquely adapted to their particular circumstances. Celeste's integration into their lives had transformed all participants. Her corporate focus broadened through meaningful personal connection, Liam's strategic abilities re-engaged through professional opportunity, Emma's health and development flourishing through expanded resources and relationships. The connection had evolved organically through mutual recognition of complementary strengths rather than forced adherence to predetermined relationship templates. The garden chess table stood ready in the backyard, permanent installation symbolizing their continuing journey together. As Emma gathered her tournament materials with characteristic enthusiasm, she paused to offer final perspective before their departure. "You know what my favorite part of chess is?" she asked, glancing between the adults with genuine curiosity. "It's not winning or even making brilliant moves. It's how the game keeps changing in ways you never expect but still follows the rules that make sense. Every game tells a different story, but they're all chess stories." Her philosophical observation carried wisdom beyond her years. Recognition that meaningful connections followed unique development patterns while maintaining essential principles of mutual respect and authentic appreciation. Their particular relationship had evolved according to its own internal logic rather than external expectations, creating something uniquely suited to their combined circumstances. As they headed toward their vehicles for the tournament journey, Liam glanced back at their home, the physical manifestation of transformations extending beyond material circumstances to encompass fundamental identity shifts and relationship evolutions. The contrast with his former cramped apartment reflected not just improved financial circumstances, but expanded life possibilities created through unexpected connection. The chess set remained visible through the kitchen window, ebony and ivory pieces positioned at the beginning of new game potential. The board represented both their shared past and continuing future initial positions, established development patterns emerging yet final arrangement, still undetermined as moves continued unfolding according to their own unique strategic logic. Whatever specific configuration might eventually emerge remained undefined future positions requiring continued thoughtful navigation across evolving circumstances. Yet fundamental principles remain constant: mutual respect, authentic appreciation, and recognition of complementary strengths creating foundation for whatever relationship pattern might ultimately develop through their continuing connection. The garden chess table awaited their return, permanent installation, representing ongoing journey rather than completed destination. Like Emma's philosophical observation, their remarkable story represented more than individual moves or specific positions. The whole integrated pattern revealing transformative connection that had changed each participant through unexpected encounter that began with simple chess, challenge, and evolved into something none could have initially imagined.